Informed by our own community's history as victims of racism during World War II, San Francisco's Japantown stands united against hate.
Sparked by the failure of political leadership and racist intent, hate crimes against the Asian American Pacific Islander community has risen during the COVID-19 pandemic.
As a community that knows all too well the history of racial prejudice, wartime hysteria, and failure of political leadership, our Japanese American community responds, using our own experience as a call to action.
As a community, Japanese Americans cannot be silent while groups are targeted and demonized in the same way we once were.
Now more than ever, our community must speak out for targeted communities, including our own.
Although there has been hate-inspired vandalism, San Francisco's Japantown has thus far escaped physical attacks of hate.
But we must remain vigilant against such attacks, particularly for our vulnerable and beloved seniors.
What constitutes bullying? Unwanted aggressive behavior such as ongoing taunting. What about a hate incident? Racially derogatory statements or insults? And then what about a hate crime? A hate crime is violence or threats of violence that rise to the level of criminal behavior beyond just speech.
Some examples of hate-motivated bullying include taunting one's race, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or physical or mental disabilities. The bullying behavior may also be aggressive, antagonistic, and assaultive.
We need to identify who this is happening to and where. Sharing your information is important.
By gathering information, we can push for better protection, educational resources, and policies that can put an end to this.
Japantown came together in solidarity to stand united against more than 700 hate crimes in just 2 weeks after the 2016 election alone. These appeared to be emboldened by the misogynistic, xenophobic, and racist rhetoric of the Trump campaign.
These hate crimes included physical assaults and racist vandalism. At this event entitled United for Compassion, then San Francisco Public Defender Jeff Adachi told us, quote, "We all need to be public defenders now."
We also recognize the perils of systemic racism. As Black people continuously fall victim to countless cases of police brutality, we echo and support the grassroots movement for Black lives and demand justice and liberation for Black people.
We must continue to address injustices faced by all communities of color, including our Black neighbors in the city's Fillmore district. We welcome any community who wants to stand in solidarity together.
In a show of unity, the Japanese American and Japantown community is taking a clear stand against hate while addressing the fear that has shrouded our communities.
We stand in solidarity for equality,
equity, and the freedom.
We stand for the human spirit.
We stand here
united against hate.
For the sake of our elders and for our children, join us in standing united against hate.
Not moving.
Hello everybody, my name is Yuki Nishimura and I am a board member of the Nichi Bei Foundation, and I welcome you to our 6th annual Nichi Bei Day of Giving. At this year's Day of Giving, we invite you to join our family of members so you can receive the leading Japanese American community newspaper in the country and keep connected and informed this year. Nichi Bei Day of Giving donors will be eligible to receive some great thank you gifts. For those who contribute $100 to $249, you will receive 1 year of our digital edition of the Nichi Bei Weekly. Those who contribute $250 to $499 will receive 1 year of our digital edition, as well as a special adjustable tofu face mask, including makimino.com. Those who contribute $500 to $999 will receive a 1-year premium membership consisting of our print and digital editions, as well as the Soy and Tofu Festival tote bag. And those of you who contribute $1,000 or more can receive premium membership, 1 year for yourself and 1 year gift, as well as the Tofu Festival tote bag and Tofudo face mask. November 5th will also be eligible for the Day of Giving drawings for DVDs and many more. And we will also be giving away 10 one-year subscriptions to Masterclass, $180 value, in our 5 raffles throughout the next 3 hours. Donate today to be eligible for these great gifts. It's our way of thanking you for your support. Now, we have a full schedule today, segments of our Nichi Bei Cafe, summary of our programs that support Nichi Bei, and the reflections from our staff about their favorite story or segments that they enjoyed in the last year. Stay tuned for some special announcements regarding the Nichi Bei Weekly and the Nichi Bei Foundation that we are grateful to share. So without further ado, let's start the program. Coming up is a few segments on our history and legacy of 2 important funds that help fuel our programs at Nichi Bei: the Educational Fund and the KW Lee Reporting Fund.
Foundation is obviously, it's informed and inspired by 2 historical pillars, one being the Nichi Bei Shimbun, which was formed in 1899 by Kyutaro Abiko, said to be the most influential Issei pioneer. Not only did he create the Nichi Bei Shimbun in 1899, but he also founded 3 Japanese farming colonies in the Central Valley, a bank, program to send Nisei to Japan to learn more about their culture during the summer. And after he passed away in 1936, it was taken over by Yona Abiko, his wife, who is the younger sister of Umeko Tsuda, the founder of Tsuda College in Japan. Yona Abiko also was the chief fundraiser for the Japantown, or Japanese YWCA, which is now home to Nihonmachi Little Friends. After the war, some former staff members of the Nichi Bei Shimbun started the Nichi Bei Times to get the community reconnected after their devastating wartime experience in the concentration camps. They found the Nichi Bei Times as a way to get the community reconnected, and the leader of that movement was Shichinosuke Asano. The Times was started as a corporation, different from the sole proprietorship, which was what the Shimbun was. But Mr. Asano was a protege of the first commoner prime minister of Japan, Takashi Kei Hara, who told him to go to America and make something of himself. So Mr. Asano used the early pages of the Nichi Bei Times to help guide this movement for post-war relief. And so you have 17 tons of products that were sent out here from America, and 20% of those were done by Japanese American groups and Japanese South American groups after the war, using different relief societies. So the Nichi Bei Times in those early stages was used to send those post-war relief goods to Japan, because although Japanese Americans came out of camp with nothing, Mr. Asano and others knew that those in Japan were even more devastated because of the war and starving. So they sought responsibility to send relief goods to Japan. The Nichi Bei Times board of directors was closing the newspaper in 2009. And to counter that, we started the Nichi Bei Foundation, technically July 27, 2009. And this was something really uncharted. It was uncharted waters. There was no model to go by. So essentially, we're starting this nonprofit organization to start the first nonprofit ethnic newspaper of its kind in the country, the Nichi Bei Weekly. Again, there was no model to go by, so the beginning of that was very tumultuous. But it was important to me to have the first edition of the Nichi Bei Weekly follow the very last issue of the Nichi Bei Times. So there was this continuity. And we did so because we felt the community needed a news resource, a means to keep people connected. And then a month later, the Hokubei Mainichi closed. The mission of the Nichi Bei Foundation, and by extension the Nichi Bei Weekly, is to keep the Japanese American, Asian American community connected, informed, and empowered. Very simple. I think I think also because of the times, the economic reality of when we were born, our mission has expanded to helping other community organizations through publication of their events, sponsorship ads of fundraising events. And I also see a large part of our role is documenting history as it happens. There's really no other newspaper doing that now. And as we've seen by the researchers who came to do research on the old Nichi Bei Shimbun, Nichi Bei Times, in 50, 100 years from now, the only thing that's going to indicate the life of the community is going to be the community newspaper. TV is not going to be indexed. Radio is gone one ear and out the other over the commercial break. And we don't know where the internet's going to be like. So what we're doing is documenting history as it happens. And I think that has become a large part of our role. And I think it's one of the awesome responsibilities that we have.
The Nichi Bei Foundation gave birth to the first nonprofit ethnic community newspaper of its kind in the country, in the worst economy in some 4 decades. The Nichi Bei has always been about being the glue that holds a community together, be it culturally, historically, socially, politically, spiritually, or emotionally. It became incumbent upon us to document the community's history for generations to come. Many of the special editions produced by the Nichi Bei Times were refined and published in the Nichi Bei Weekly, including the New Year's edition, the Japanese Culture and Cherry Blossom Festivals Guide, the Obon and Summer Festivals Guide, Home and Garden issue, Health and Wellness issue. The Japanese Culture and Cherry Blossom Festivals Guide became our effort to preserve Japanese culture in America, providing vast listings of Japanese cultural arts classes, a guide to Japanese cultural festivals across the country, and a directory of Japanese cultural centers in North America, as well as summer cultural programs. The San Francisco Japantown Map and Directory, what we call our Japantown Empowerment Project, was vastly revamped in 2019. It highlights new businesses, Japantown favorites, as well as a history walk. Moreover, it continues to boast the most comprehensive map and bilingual directory ever developed of the ethnic enclave. To further promote and empower San Francisco's Japantown, we are now working with a distribution company to bring it to some 300 locations across the Bay Area. In 2012, the Nichi Bei Foundation launched what would become our signature fundraiser, the Northern California Soy and Tofu Festival. The festival has brought together food vendors, artisan vendors, cooking demonstrators, and live entertainment in an afternoon of creative fun for the entire family. All the while, it has served as a vehicle for community building and leadership development. As the Nichi Bei Weekly likely publishes the most book reviews per year of all Asian American publications, it was natural to help further empower authors by collaborating on author events, often in partnership with other organizations. But the evolution of the foundation as an educational institution came to a head in the development of 3 events in particular, which not only became core programs of the Nichi Bei, but also some of the most meaningful community events overall. Films of Remembrance was launched in 2012 to provide filmmakers a venue to showcase their work on the Japanese American concentration camp experience during World War II. The event has grown to become the Foundation's signature educational program and the premier event of any of its kind in the country, spanning some 90 film screenings over 9 years, while expanding to Sacramento in 2017, New York City in 2019, and to San Jose's Japantown in 2020. The Nichi Bei Foundation launched the Nikkei Angel Island Pilgrimage in 2014 to get the community reconnected to our nearly forgotten legacy on the island, in partnership with the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation and the National Japanese American Historical Society. With more than 650 attendees, it was perhaps the largest Japanese American community gathering on the island. The immigration station may have been lost forever, however, had it not been for those who we honored at the pilgrimage in 2014. Through 4 Nikkei Angel Island pilgrimages, we now have reconnected some 1,700 or more people to this nearly forgotten legacy, helping to rediscover our Nikkei roots while honoring our immigrant ancestors. On October 7, 2017, we launched our first pilgrimage to the historic Wakamatsu Tea and Silk Farm Colony in Placerville, California. the site of the first large settlement of Japanese America, established on June 8, 1869. On October 5, 2019, we launched our second pilgrimage to the site, the birthplace of the first Japanese American and gravesite of the first Japanese woman buried in America, Okei Ito. Volunteers from the California Genealogical Society have been able to reunite hundreds with their family histories at both pilgrimages. In furthering the Nichi Bei legacy of community leadership through media, the Nichi Bei Foundation has also held some special programs over its short tenure. 2015 marked the 20th anniversary of Kayohata's groundbreaking Picture Bride, the first major film written, directed, and produced by Asian American women. The Nichi Bei Foundation benefit screenings included discussions and a reception with actress Tamlyn Tomita. In 2016, we organized 3 benefit screenings of Persona non grata, the story of Chiyune Sugihara, known as the Japanese Schindler for issuing transit visas that saved the lives of some 6,000 Jewish refugees. 5 local descendants of such survivors met with descendants of the Japanese diplomat from Japan. In November of 2016, due to a rash of post-election hate crimes seemingly inflamed by the racial rhetoric of the Trump campaign, the Nichi Bei Foundation took a lead role in organizing United for Compassion, a Japantown vigil against post-election hate. This collaborative event brought out hundreds in unity against racial scapegoating. A United Compassion 2 was held in 2018. And to mark the 75th anniversary of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Nichi Bei Foundation took a lead role in presenting a virtual remembrance 75 years after atomic bombings on August 9, 2020, in collaboration with the Friends of Hibakusha and the Japanese American Religious Federation.
To honor the spirit and legacy of the late educator, historian, longtime Nichi Bei contributing writer, and our founding board member, the Nichi Bei Foundation established the Wayne Mayada Educational Fund to help support educational programs within the community. These include our Authors Series events, our annual Films of Remembrance event, our pilgrimage to the Angel Island Immigration Station, and the Wakamatsu Tea and Soap Farm Colony. He was the founding board member of the Nichi Bei Foundation, but some 40 years earlier, he was a founding faculty member of the California State University Sacramento Ethnic Studies program, one of the very first such programs in the nation. A dedicated scholar, he curated the landmark 1992 Sacramento History Museum exhibit, Continuing Traditions, Japanese Americans, Story of a People, 1869 to 1992, which included my family's story. He also authored the book Changing Dreams and Treasured Memories, a story of Japanese Americans in the Sacramento region. He was also a board member of the California State University Sacramento Japanese American Archival Collection, the National Japanese American Historical Society, Jankenpo Gakko, which I was a part of as a young boy growing up in Sacramento, and the Wakamatsu Gold Hill Colony Foundation. Wayne Mayada was the longest-serving Nichi Bei Times/Weekly contributing writer, writing dozens of book reviews for over 17 years. Sadly, he lost his bout with cancer on February 27, 2013, at the age of 65, with his wife, Lori Tuhi Mayada, also passing away from cancer only 3 days later. Please help continue Wayne Mayada's legacy of educating the community and the public about Japanese American experience by supporting this fund today.
The Nichi Bei Foundation takes great pride in its K.W. Lee Reporting Fund. This fund honors the legendary investigative reporter K.W. Lee, whose journalism helped exonerate a Korean immigrant accused of a crime that he did not commit. The fund also allows the Nichi Bei to support additional in-depth writing and reporting by journalists who, thanks to this fund, are able to bring important stories to the Nichi Bei readership. The fund was launched with a generous $9,000 donation made by Asian American Studies professor Glenn Omatsu of California State University, Northridge. Glenn is an advocate of the ethnic press and once worked for San Francisco's Hokubei Mainichi newspaper. Kyung-won Lee, known as KW, is a significant figure in American journalism. He was the first Asian American hired by a mainstream U.S. newspaper, an activist who challenged racism, and a chronicler of the lives of Asian Americans who emigrated to the U.S. in the early 20th century. Lee was born in 1928 in Kaesong, North Korea. He came to the United States in 1950 to study journalism at West Virginia University. He earned a master's degree from the University of Illinois in 1955. Soon after, he became the first Asian immigrant hired by a mainstream daily newspaper, covering stories such as black lung disease suffered by coal miners in the Appalachian Mountains and the civil rights movement in the U.S. South for the Kingsport Times and News in Tennessee and the Charleston Gazette in West Virginia. But perhaps his best-known journalistic work occurred while Lee was a reporter in California at the Sacramento Union in the 1970s. A series of investigative reports into the incarceration of Chol-Soo Lee, a Korean immigrant who was wrongly convicted in 1973 for a murder in San Francisco's Chinatown, led to the first national Pan-Asian movement. Lee's reports resulted in the retrial and acquittal of Chol-Soo Lee in 1983. Often referred to as the godfather of Asian American journalism, Lee went on to establish Koreatown Weekly, the first national English-language Korean American publication and the English edition of the Korea Times in Los Angeles. He is the founding president of the Korean American Journalists Association and in 2000 was inducted into the Journalism History Gallery in the Museum in Washington, D.C. Lee's writings inspired a younger generation of Japanese American and Asian American activists. This includes the late San Francisco public defender Jeff Adachi, who said, KW had a knack for telling people what they didn't always want to hear, but needed to hear. He used to say, "Get off your ass and organize." I don't think I would have become a public defender, but for my involvement in the Chol-Soo Lee movement and KW Lee's writing, which sparked it, Adachi said in a story published in the Nichi Bei Weekly in 2019.
I hope you enjoyed that segment. Next, we will feature a couple of Nichi Bei Cafe segments looking at reclaiming history, creating Day of Remembrance with Frank Abe, and an interview with Free Chol-Soo Lee filmmakers Julie Ha and Eugene Yi, as well as activists Ranko Yamada, Peggy Saika, and David Kakishiba. Please enjoy.
I've been asked to share with you the origins of the first Day of Remembrance in Seattle at the Puyallup Fairgrounds. That first event was held on Thanksgiving weekend of 1978. But Days of Remembrance have become a tradition to mark the anniversary of Executive Order 9066 on February 19th. What I want you to keep in mind is that this was an invented tradition, and it was invented here in Seattle 4 decades ago. The leadership came from the Evacuation Redress Committee of the JACL chapter in Seattle. I took it as a badge of honor that Seattle was disparaged as the so-called Maverick chapter back then. These were the people who inspired me to the cause of redress, and I want you to know their names. From the left, Shosuke Sasaki, Henry Miyatake, Chuck Kato, Mike Nakata, and Ken Nakano. Shosuke was the Issei thinker of the group, a retired securities analyst. Henry and the other Nisei were aerospace engineers at Boeing. They were real slide rule jockeys with pocket protectors in their shirts. So the idea for the event and the name came from San Francisco playwright Frank Chin, who was then living in Seattle to write a long essay on the grassroots redress campaign. What also kicked us into action was opposition to redress from this seeming authority on the subject, S.I. Hayakawa, who, if you're too young to remember, was a Japanese-Canadian elected to the U.S. Senate from California, who never spent a day in camp himself. The major media joined the attack. The Wall Street Journal accused us of guilt-mongering, of snapping at compensation for ancient wrongs under the guise of human rights, and condemning a broader society in which collective guilt for past sins had become a commodity to be traded, mongered, and exploited. So a Day of Remembrance was conceived as street theater and a way to get the media and public opinion on our side. This was the poster we tacked up on telephone poles and in bowling alleys, just like the Western Defense Command posters in 1942. The design was superimposed over a ghost image of the original poster, with language calibrated to signal that this was not just a commemoration. The operative word up: remember the concentration camps, stand for redress with your family. The poster invited people to join us in dramatizing the eviction from Seattle with a car caravan down Interstate 5 to our hometown concentration camp at the Western Washington Fairgrounds, which was the site of the old Puyallup Assembly Center. Now, we had a sense that people were interested by the number of phone calls we were getting, but nothing prepared us for the crowd that flooded the parking lot of Sick Stadium. It felt like the entire community poured out to remember the camps and stand for redress with their families. So many people showed up, we struggled to sign everyone in. Joining us were actor and comedian Pat Morita. He spoke at the event, as did Gordon Hirabayashi, Seattle's Nisei daughter Monica Sone, and the actor Mako. The line of cars stretched down Interstate 5 as far as the eye could see. And inside the cars, the memory of leaving Seattle triggered something inside the Nisei. Parents opened up to their children about what happened to them during the war, many of them for the first time. And what people feared most never happened. There was no white backlash, no angry mob, no rekindling of old resentments and racism, as Hayakawa had threatened. Anthropologist Yasuko Takazawa called it the event that burst open the tomb of Japanese American history. We've come a long way from that day in 1978. But while a Day of Remembrance is often observed as a commemoration or a time of reflection, it was founded in the heat of political pushback. It was always about taking action. Over the past 40 years, I've been pleased to see communities use the Day of Remembrance as a rallying point to stand with other targeted groups. Our government was wrong to single out Japanese Americans for exclusion and incarceration based solely on our race. It was wrong then, and it's wrong now. But fortunately, whenever we see Americans turn against a people because of their race or their religion or their immigration status, Japanese Americans have shown that we won't just stand by. We won't just go along. We're speaking up. We're saying that every person deserves a fair hearing before removal or detention. We're saying that no children should be separated from their parents, just as after Pearl Harbor, many of our fathers were separated from their families. We're being the friends we didn't have when we needed them the most. It happened to us. And every year, on the Day of Remembrance, we are saying we refuse to let it happen again to anyone else. Thank you.
When I was 18 years old, I did an internship at the Korea Times English edition, edited and founded by K.W. Lee, the journalist in our film. And it was upon meeting him that I found out about the Chol-Soo Lee case. He had written a series of stories that helped spur this movement to free a wrongfully convicted Korean man from prison. I couldn't get the Chol-Soo Lee story out of my mind. And that's because almost a year earlier, Chol-Soo Lee had died at the age of 62. I had attended the funeral to write an obituary, and also really just to see KW Lee because I was worried about him. I know it was a deeply painful loss for him, and he never expected to outlive Chol-Soo Lee. But it was really, looking back, it feels like it was at that funeral where the seeds of the idea to make a film were really planted. Although, we didn't know it at the time. When Eugene mentioned making a film together, I just remember saying like, well, somebody needs to make a film about the Chol-Soo Lee story. And so Eugene and I just decided we would do that. We would dig in and excavate the story. We both recognized it was just too important for it to be forgotten, and it could have so much impact within our community and just really for everyone, not just within our community, for everyone.
I'm eternally grateful that Julie said yes at that point to this pitch. But the thing I think I did know at the time, and why I thought Julie would be a wonderful person to work with, was not just because of our shared sensibility or our shared work history, but just her connection to the story and her passion for it. I knew were just there and were going to be so important to get us through this entire process, which has taken 6 years for us to finish, which ends up being kind of an interesting rhyme with the movement itself, since the movement to free him also took about 6 years.
Gosh, so many tie-ins to Sacramento. First of all, with KW Lee, he was chief investigative reporter for the Sacramento Union at the time. This story, and Chol-Soo Lee was arrested in San Francisco for this murder. And yet, so that was outside of KW's beat. And when he found out about this case, he felt very strongly about it, even worked on his own time. Jeff Adachi and David Kakashiba and others who are part of the movement. They provided this youthful energy, this idealism.
I first heard about the case from Peggy. It was in the summer of '78. She was in Sacramento, and I was home for the summer from my first year at Berkeley. And she told me about the Chol-Soo Lee. So I was telling Jeff about this case and what Peggy was saying. And he says, he says, shit, let's go see this KW Lee guy.
So there are a lot of Sacramento ties. We should mention also Grace Kim and JU, the older members of the movement.
There happened to be this vibrant Korean immigrant community in Sacramento as well, led by some of the people that Julie mentioned, Jae-yu, who was a law student at the time, Grace Kim and Luke Kim. Grace Kim was a teacher, Luke Kim was a Dr. Luke Kim, I should say, as a psychiatrist. And they were people who were not only active leaders in the Korean community, immigrant community there, they were very politically engaged. I mean, a lot of these immigrants were anti-communist because they had come from Korea and had experienced just sort of everything that happened in Korea during the war and afterwards, while many of the younger Asian American activists were inspired by Maoist or other kind of very left-wing thoughts. So the fact that they were able to work together on this case, I think, it just presents a really interesting case study in terms of how an Asian America that is inclusive and can include everybody along that spectrum can really exist.
And when this Chol-Soo Lee situation came along and I began hunting for an attorney who wouldn't give, no attorneys would give me the time of day. And that just kind of fueled this idea that I should go to law school and become an attorney.
The first time he called me, I remember, you're getting these collect calls and I'm like going, oh my God, it's Chol-Soo, It would always be in the middle of the night for me because, he's like waiting for, in line to be able to use the phone and stuff. And so he'd always laugh. He goes, I can't believe I call you. It's 3 a.m., in the morning and you just answer the phone and it's like, hi, He'd always call me though. It's because he would have been waiting hours, to use the phone. And then I'm 3 hours ahead in New York. So it'd always be about 3 or 4 in the morning. He gave us an enormous opportunity to band together and do something really good. And that's what Chol-Soo gave us.
And for the fact that Asians came together to support Chol-Soo is kind of breaking some taboos. I mean, my mom and dad is going like, he guilty.
We didn't have a good plan for him, a reentry plan and support that you need. I just think that that's really was more immaturity, I think, on our part and the movement's part too. We fought for his release. That happened, but we didn't create in the deepest way how he needed us more once he got released. Despite everything, he was still fighting and surviving. So I really admired him for that and never stopped. He was at his core an incredibly loving person, generous, loving, caring, at his core. That's who he was. He taught me so much. he taught me so much. I loved him a lot. I think you could tell. I loved him a lot. I still do.
But being able to tell the story was a way that I hope, can not only connect this moment to this history of resistance and this history of Asian Americans fighting, but to maybe inspire and push along even more what's going on.
KW Lee has said, people without a history are hollow. And I think for Eugene and myself, sharing this story so that especially Asian Americans know that this is part of their history, in terms of this victim of racial profiling, this immigrant Korean journalist who rooted out this injustice and told people about it, this movement of resistance led by odd combination of Korean immigrants and third generation Asian American activists. Like, this is part of our history. This happened. This is the truth. In our film, you can actually visualize what the movement sounded like, what it looked like once people are armed with this history. Hopefully it'll make Asian Americans think about what our roles are in creating a more just society. There could be just a real legacy for the Chol-Soo Lee case even today.
Mics are on, and
Hi, my name is Nichi Bei, and I'm the CFO for the Nichi Bei Foundation, who is our membership coordinator. And we are going to give out prizes for people that have contributed to.
It's pretty hard to hear.
So our first prize is a soy and tofu lunch bag, and every winner also gets resource and anthology of poetry. So our raffle includes all the people who have donated so far.
Okay, I get it.
And we're going to make it random.
Can you stand right there? There you go. Kelly.
The prize is to Sharon.
How's that?
Good. San Jose, California. Our next prize is another lunch bag. And that goes to me. Uh-oh. I don't think I should do this. I think I need to do this. So I'll draw another one. Harumi Sarata of San Francisco, California. You also get a lunch bag. Our DVD for Farewell to Manzanar will go to Ellen Uchida of Palo Alto, California. Our next prize, The Art of Tofu. We'll go to Sylvia Kihara and Roger Neal of Rockville, Maryland. Our other art book will go to Hugo Moore of Aptos, California. Now, Yuki, come on and join us for the fun.
Thank you so much, Wes and Edie. Sorry that I'm stepping right in front of you, but congratulations to all the winners. I'm excited to introduce to you the next segment. Probably the one that I'm personally looking most forward to. So, Nichi Bei engages younger members of our community, including reflections by past interns, our Northern California Soy and Tofu Festival, and reflections by my two favorite people, Ryan Kelly, the Nichi Bei Cafe. Please take it away.
Hello, my name is Edie Horner, and I'm the CFO of the Nichi Bei Foundation. I'd like to share with you one of my favorite events that the Nichi Bei Foundation puts on every year. The Nichi Bei Foundation Soy and Tofu Festival event is a great food event focusing on everything that is soy and tofu. I feel we connect with a different part of the local community that values soy-based products and foods. For me this year, I participated with my church and operated a booth that served a non-meat hot dog called the wafu dog. And being a food that is a staple of the Northern California Cherry Blossom Festival, I appreciated that we were able to modify our offering for a non-meat crowd. Our church put our collective hearts together to serve the soy and tofu crowds. If you have a chance to attend, you will feel the various ethnic-related soy-based products available on the market today. So I invite you to join the Nichi Bei family of members so you can receive the best Japanese American community newspaper in the country and experience events like the Soy and Tofu Festival to keep the community connected and informed throughout the year.
Hi everybody, my name is Mike Inoue. I'm NBC Bay Area's traffic anchor Monday through Friday, but right now, well, I'm part of your MC team. And I'm also a fan of tofu, celebrating the joy of soy. And in fact, this shirt I'm wearing, it's a direct descendant of the very first shirt I got at this festival to benefit Nihon Machi Little Friends. Apparently it was also a good proof of concept. You see, in 2012, the Nichi Bei Foundation, in collaboration with a number of community-based organizations and individuals, formally launched what would become a signature fundraiser for the organization, the Northern California Soy and Tofu Festival. Each year, colleagues and myself, we've all been able to be a part of this, hosting with George Kitayama, Robert Honda, and me, alternating throughout the years. The first full-blown festival, put together essentially in just a span of about 2 months, brought together some 3,500 people to San Francisco's Japantown, to Peace Plaza outdoors, where it grew until 2016 when it was brought indoors to the nearby event center at St. Mary's Cathedral. Now, a key fundraiser for Nichi Bei, the festival has brought together food vendors, artisans, and cooking demonstrations, live workshops and live entertainment. It's an afternoon full of creative fun for the entire family, exposing kids and also parents to foods that they might not have explored before. All the while, it's served as a vehicle for community building, leadership development, and engagement, which is what Nichi Bei Foundation is all about. Sadly, the Nichi Bei Foundation had to cancel its 10th annual Northern California Soy and Tofu Festival back in 2020, and once again this past June due to the coronavirus pandemic. But we hope that you can get a feel for the event by this video that we're showing. It brings back the energy that we had back in 2019 with my buddy Robert Honda as one of the co-hosts there. And we hope this inspires you to carry on the joy of soy into the future. Support the Nichi Bei Foundation, support Soy and Tofu Festival in the future, and I hope to see you there soon, either at the tofu eating contest or maybe with a famous recipe that you bring from your family. Take care.
Want to learn more about the Japanese American community? Come and hang out at the Nichi Bei Cafe, where East meets West to serve up a mixed plate of Japanese American news and culture. An innovative monthly live stream program designed to keep the community engaged and connected from the comforts of their own homes, the Nichi Bei Cafe features news and events, cooking videos in collaboration with Namiko Chen of Just One Cookbook, origami video lessons with Linda Mihara of Paper Tree, cocktail recipes and more from the Gochiso gourmet Ryan Tatsumoto in Hawaii, and videos of Japanese American legacy businesses. We have 7 episodes up so far covering topics such as food, summer festivals, AAPI Heritage Month, home and garden, and much more. The Nichi Bei Cafe is funded by a generous grant from the Henry and Tomoya Takahashi Charitable Foundation. Stay tuned here to find out what's on the next menu.
What's up, guys? It's Ryan.
And it's Kelly. We're here at Santo Market and we got some delicious food here from San Jose's Japantown.
Santo Market was started in 1946 by actually my dad's uncle, George Santo. And then when my dad came out of the service, lucky for me, he asked my dad if he wanted to be a part of the store. And like I said, it's lucky for me, so hence I am now running the store since it was kind of passed over to my father. They actually started on Jackson Street in 1946. About 10, 11 years later, I believe in 57, they moved to this location. I started here back in high school. I worked here through my high school and college years. Upon graduating college, father wanted me to work out, so I went to work for an electronics company for about 5 years. And after that point, I came back to the store. At that point, I was just kind of helping my dad since he was still here, really running the store. And little by little, I started taking over more of the responsibilities, doing more of the ordering, organizing the employees, and doing the scheduling for that kind of thing. To me, actually, the pandemic changed our operation, made it kind of a little bit better for us. We closed our stores, and my dad had some windows we're using for coffee service over here. So our coffee windows now became our service windows, and we're serving our store through a couple of service windows. We aren't looking to reopen the doors anytime soon. Everything seems to be working out where we're able to sell what we have through the windows, and we're able to maintain our business and keep everything flowing there. We don't have as many grocery items like we did before, but we still have the main basics. So a lot of the things we do has been geared toward the community, helping the Buddhist church, the Methodist church, and a couple other churches in the neighborhood, and all the youth groups that kind of come from them. We try to help them as much as we can for their fundraisers, for any activities they do. Got to keep the community strong. Really like to try to continue the store, mainly legacy for my mom and dad, for what they have established and what they have built up over here. For the next generation, we've had them kind of talk about it, and they've inquired, and now it's to see if somebody really wants to grab the store and go run with it. Always open, and I'm waiting for them. Our best-selling thing now is kind of revolving around our deli, which is mainly our poke we're selling. We do a lot of local moco, Portuguese sausage eggs, Spam and eggs, and we also do a flank steak. So we do a flank steak where we tenderize it, marinate it in teriyaki sauce, and then we do a flour egg and we fry it up like that. So that's also one of my favorites. So here's our one of our poke bowls. This is kind of what has been carrying us since during the pandemic. I was pretty lucky. I got a couple of nice recipes from a friend in Hawaii. So he gave us a good shoyu poke recipe and a spicy poke recipe. It's something we were kind of, you're always searching for that one product that's going to be one to kick you over the edge. And we think this is the one that did it for us. We do our more Hawaiian style week where we make our poke in the morning. So we start off with all of our poke kind of pre-made, and it goes from there. So it's been marinating for a couple hours to be as tasty as possible. So the shoyu poke is like this, it's a shoyu based poke there, but there's a couple other ingredients we added to ours that a lot of places may not know. Us bringing in Hawaii products, I knew like the limu they add to it, and the kukui nut. So it's kind of more of a classical poke, where a lot of the old timers from Hawaii, when they see we have a limu poke, they taste the kukui nut in there. It just gives them really reminds them of being at home, getting their poke from there. We hear from a lot of our customers that our poke reminds them of them growing up or them getting their poke when they go either vacation Hawaii or those who lived in Hawaii. We used to use a bowl, actually our noodle bowl, put the rice on the bottom, the poke on that, and we just felt that being hot rice, raw tuna, unless they ate it right away, it was kind of changing the texture and the quality of the product. So we decided to split it into two, so the poke will still stay as cool as possible, and the rice will be in the side, so that'll stay hot. And this here's our strawberry mochi. This actually got started when my parents took a vacation to Hawaii. One of the first things we asked them upon coming home was, what new things or different things did you try in Hawaii? And first thing they mentioned is they tried a strawberry daifuku from Hawaii. And a couple weeks later, we started looking how to make it, start doing experimenting it, and we end up making our own strawberry daifuku here. So this is actually probably our second bestseller after our poke. We make them on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We recommend you come before 10 o'clock if you want to try to pick it up, or give us a call so we could set an order aside for you, or call a couple days in advance and place an order that we can get it for you that way. Nowadays, like I said, it always sells out. If we have it till 11 o'clock, it's a slow day. They can find us in San Jose at the corner of 6th and Taylor. Our address is 245 East Taylor, but we're right on the corner of North 6th and East Taylor in Japantown.
Thank you to Santo Market for all the wonderful food.
Yep.
Nichi Bei Cafe went down to San Mateo to Takahashi Market to talk to Gene and Bobby Takahashi on what they do here and how they have evolved throughout the pandemic.
We started in 1906. We made the kitchen to coincide with our centennial, so 2006 is when our commercial kitchen was installed. Up until then, we've been doing a few things like poke, but 2006 is when we actually had a commercial kitchen, so we were able to start offering hot plate lunches and things like that. We started carrying Hawaiian food in I think the late 50s, early 60s, because at that time it was hard to find just the Asian food in general. And I think about that time is when the San Francisco airport was being built, and a lot of Hawaiian customers came into us because they had a lot of them came out here to work for the airport. And my father was able to secure vendors in Hawaii to bring some of those things in. My son does a better job than I ever did. The whole family is really proud of Bobby. We're glad he's doing a good job taking over the place. He really got us through the beginning of the pandemic. He's the one who helped us pivot all our operations. And we were very proud of the fact that his main concern was taking care of our older customers. He wanted to make sure the social distancing was set up right away. In fact, he wouldn't let me come into work for a few weeks because he kept saying, "No, Dad, you're too old. You can't be around here."
I'm enjoying it a lot more and more the more I get involved, and it's getting a little easier each day too. The more everyone here gets more comfortable with it too. I mean, it's part of who I am. I mean, I grew up here every single day. Watched it grow into what it is now, and all with my family with me too. So it really does mean a lot to me. I kind of lose my mind a little bit if I'm not here for too long. Our customers here are really a big reason why we're able to just stay open and not have to worry too much about it. I was really glad to see all of our customers coming in during the pandemic. Really made me want to come back and keep things moving and keep things open, just make sure I'm there for them too. And then right after people started getting vaccinated, all of our regular customers, all like the sanseis and the niseis too, actually. But then they all started coming back in too, and it was really great to see everyone. I mean, I think what we have here is it works really well. All the staff is happy. We're not like super stressed out. One thing that I did start to do that I want to kind of get going more was that we started doing malasadas. They're old-time customers that just started making malasadas like 10 years ago, and they were super small, and then now in the past year now, they got their own truck and they were able to move around to different farmers markets. Me and Randy and Dee started working things out and trying to get them in here more regularly. I want to kind of do things like that where I meet really good people and just kind of let them sell whatever they like here, you know? As long as they want to do it, as they enjoy doing it, like we're more than happy to welcome them in too.
We try to make our poke as close to Hawaiian style as possible. Cubes of fresh tuna, a little bit of Hawaiian salt, soy sauce, a little bit of sesame oil, fresh Hawaiian seaweed, green onions, sweet onions. And then for the hot version, it's the same thing except a little bit of extra chili on it. The tuna we get from mostly from our Japanese suppliers. And the seaweed we bring in fresh from Hawaii, we have to air freight that in because it is hard to find out here. I remember around 75 was one of my first trips to Hawaii, and that's one of the first times I ever had it. And I was thinking, wow, we already sold sashimi, but I figured this is something that we need to put onto our menu.
This is a lokomoko. Normally the lokomokos you find in Hawaii, they're just a regular beef patty, but ours is more like a meatloaf, like a seasoned ground beef with all of all the fixings you would have for a meatloaf, and that's probably my favorite thing to eat growing up too. So I wanted to make sure that the lokomoko was up to par. The musubis are definitely the most popular thing here now. And these are just a few of them. There's salmon crawfish, Kahlua pork cabbage, and the salmon belly musubi. Salmon crawfish, probably my favorite of the three here so far. But by numbers alone, Spam is still the #1 seller.
Many of the foods served at Takahashi Market come from family recipes that were passed down through the Takahashi generations. Others are inventions from Bobby's childhood or ones he has come up with himself in recent years.
Like the salmon crawfish is, we used to just kind of make that ourselves, just with the salmon plate. But we used to like crush it up and mix it with the crawfish salad and scramble it with eggs. And that was our breakfast a lot of times. And it's really good. So that's why we're like, oh, put it into a musubi too.
It is now time for some amateur food reviewing with co-hosts Kelly and Ryan and Nikkei community intern Jay. First up, Loco Moco.
That's crazy. Because instead of it being like a regular hamburger patty, like I think Bobby explained, it tastes like kalbi, which is like delicious and amazing. And it has like a sweetness to it, which actually pairs really well with the egg and the other sauce. Retweet.
Dang.
That is really good.
This is really close, if not on par with the locomoco that I've actually had in Hawaii. But the gravy is really good.
Yeah.
And normally it's difficult to make gravy because of the flour to water or milk ratio. But they did a really good job. Yeah, like Kelly said, it's really like sweet, but there's also like salty notes in there. It balances well, again, with the egg. If you don't have locomoco with green onions on it, what are you doing?
It's really good. For some reason, I thought that the kalbi taste came from the gravy, but I just tried the patty, and it actually comes from the patty. So I don't know what they did, but it tastes really good.
But they did it right.
They did it extremely right.
The seasoning of the patty was really good.
I agree. I again have no original thoughts, but I also want to say that the rice is really good. Like, I feel like sometimes you go to places and the food will be good, but then the rice is kind of like dry, subpar. But this is actually really good rice, and I really like rice, so that was a scream plus for me.
It's time to try some poke.
Time for some poke. I got the spicy one. Woo! Looks like tuna. It's tuna. It's kind of spicy, but the texture of the fish is amazing. It like almost melts in your mouth. It's so delicious and fresh, and this seaweed
is nice and crunchy, and the scallions are also nice and crunchy.
The sauce is really good. I love the seaweed in this.
It's good.
I will finish the entire thing. Oh, I got this. I got the spicy one.
I got some not spicy. Also very good.
Is there a lot of spice in there, or is it kind of like mild?
Mine's not spicy. It's like they don't listen when I talk.
It's like a very traditional, simple poke, which I very much appreciate in these days of poke appropriation.
She's not wrong.
I appreciate how simple this is with just like sauce, tuna, seaweed, scallions, onion.
I mean, I would call this traditional Hawaiian poke, even though we're not in Hawaii. So that's definitely a plus. But yeah, this measures up really well to a lot of poke that I've had.
Flavor's really good. It's really rich. I do wish I had some rice. That's just on me for poor planning, honestly. But it is really good.
That's the end of Amateur Food Review with Kelly, Ryan, and Jay. Thanks for joining us.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You're on.
You're on.
Hi, welcome to our raffle again.
Sorry, they're frozen right now, so I'm trying to figure that out.
Every person that receives is a Japanese culture and the Atomic Bomb Tanka anthology. For our first prize, we're going to have a soy and tofu lunch bag. So let's see who's the winner. Harry Yamada of Torrance, California. Wendy Yamanaka of Sunnyvale, California. Both of you win the soy and tofu lunch bag. Our next prize is the Art of Tofu cookbook. Jay Yuri Oyama of San Jose, California. Congratulations. You win the tofu cookbook.
Just go with audio.
Wendy McGuire of Torrance, California. You also win the tofu cookbook. Our next prize is the biography of John Okada, who wrote Nono Boy. And that goes to Kumi Okamoto of San Francisco, California. We have 3 masterclass subscriptions worth $180 that will also be
just covered them.
3 more winners. Bill Sato of El Cerrito, California. Elaine James of Mill Valley, California. And Melvin Kato of San Jose, California. Congratulations. Now Yuki, come join us.
Thank you so much, Edie and Wes, again. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I know we're experiencing some technical difficulties right now, and maybe it's only audio, but bear with us. Thanks again for joining us today for our 6th annual Nichi Bei Day of Giving. Please keep those donations coming in. Now, we will focus on expanding the margins of our Nikkei community, featuring segments on the pride flag raising and a new book focused on wartime resistance during World War II.
In a city where the flag of gender consciousness and equality has flowed through the Castro community since 1978, in another San Francisco community, San Francisco Japantown opens a new chapter recognizing within its cultural community that of gender consciousness and equality. We present the inaugural Pride Flag raising in historic San Francisco's Japantown.
So I came up with this project when I was commuting to Japantown every day during the pandemic as an essential worker. I would come from my hometown all the way in the East Bay in Clayton. And they've had the pride flag up for a few years there now. And This place is so much more home to me than my hometown. It always has been. I love this place with all my heart. And I was working so hard for my community during the pandemic. And I knew what I wanted here was to see the pride flag up in the place that I love more than anywhere in the world. Japantown, we've always had like a complicated identity from the very start as Japanese Americans. There's World War II, where we had to question, am I Japanese, am I American? So we've always had this identity struggle, proving to the world who we are, proving that it's okay to be Japanese and American at the same time. And so I've always looked at those flags, and I've seen, the American flag, I've seen the Japanese flag, and I've seen the San Franciscan flag, and I've seen it as emblematic of, this is who we are, we're all these three things, and it's fine, and we're proud of that. But for other people, there's one more flag, right? And there always has been. For LGBTQ identity, for Japanese American Nikkei. And so that's why I really wanted this flag up. And I think it's relevant to the whole community in that regard.
TALK was instrumental in having the JACL endorse gay marriages at its national convention in 1994.
Historically, historically, like I had mentioned, it's not a new thing for JCL. It's not a new issue or something that we just started to advocate for or thought about. And like I mentioned as well, there are many, many people like Norm Mineta and Judge Maritan who actually kind of pushed this whole issue in front of JCL. And I think it's come to that time, right? We're past the 1950s here. It's that time now to kind of normalize all of our feelings about this and be much more accepting.
Judy not only advocates for marginalized groups as president of the San Francisco chapter of the JACL, she advocates acceptance as a mother of an openly gay son.
He said to me, Mom, I have something I want to tell you. I said, sure, honey. He said, Mom, I'm gay. After a moment of silence, all I could say was, okay, thanks for telling me. I love you. He said, I love you too. Immediately, I called son number one. I said, hey, Barry just called, and he said that he's gay. Son number one said, you didn't know that, Mom?
Well, when they were looking for speakers, and I think most people know that my son is a gay man. And so when they said, hey, Judy, do you want to do this? I was like, well, of course, right? Because I don't have that many opportunities. I don't just go anywhere and just say, hey, by the way, my son is gay and this is what happened. So this was an opportunity for me to share that story because I think it's sort of the hope and dream for any gay LGBTQ person to have their family love them like that. And I just wanted to put that out and just honor my son who's like one of the greatest people I know.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Elaine Donlin from the Buddhist Church of San Francisco, and today is a celebration. Today is also an opportunity to reflect on the long road of our often challenging queer history.
Oh, to me it was historic, but I have always been a believer that visibility matters. And so to have that pride parade, progressive pride parade up there, and to have this celebration of that flag is just amazing. And I think it touches so many people that we don't even know. And so for me, I was so grateful to be a part of the Rainbow Coalition. I was grateful to be a part of JARF and to be able to show that not all religious traditions are hostile or unwelcoming, and that spirituality is such a big part of people's lives, and for them to know that there's a home here in Japantown and a home in our Japantown temples and churches.
This is Greg Gloria reporting for the Nichi Bei Cafe.
Thank you, Kelly and Ryan. Every July, the Nichi Bei Weekly honors writers on topics that pertain to the Japanese American community with publication of the Summer Book Review issue. I'm here now with one of the most prolific contributors of book reviews to the Nichi Bei, none other than Professor Emeritus Art Hansen, speaking to us, I believe, from Yorba Linda, California. Why do you feel it's so important to be writing these book reviews for the Nichi Bei? I see your name in every issue, contributing book reviews. Why so important?
Well, I need to stay active. I've been working on books, and I think a good thing for me to do is to be familiar with the new literature. And Kenji kindly asked me to sort of fill in as one of the lead reviewers a number of years ago, and I've just stayed with it since that time, and I've appreciated it.
Well, it's really wonderful. I see your byline. I know it's an article I have to read in the book review section. For those who are meeting Art here for the first time, he's a professor emeritus from Cal State Fullerton, founder of the incredibly valuable resource that is the oral history program at Fullerton. And lately, Art, you've been a machine churning out books on camp resistance, Barbed Voices, an oral history of, there it is, Barbed Voices, an oral history, resistance in the World War II Japanese-American social disaster, Nisei Naysayer, the memoirs of our friend journalist James Omura from Stanford University Press, and now, just now, it is Beyond the Betrayal, the memoirs of Yoshi Kuramiya, the first and very likely only book-length manuscript from one of the 63 draft resistors from the Heart Mountain Fair Play Committee. Art, after editing this volume of Yoshi Kuramiya's memoirs, what's your quick takeaway from it?
Well, I think it's an invaluable sort of piece of work because the person that's written it is a fine writer and a profound thinker. And I think, it's something that is not going to be a labor of pain for people to read. I think they can easily assimilate what he's trying to say and relate to him. And so I think it'll and relate to him not only as a writer, but as an example of somebody who had the courage and the sense of the Constitution and the sense of civil liberties and everything to speak up. And especially at this juncture in our history when that is a real problem in this country.
But when they tried to draft us out of the camps, that's where I drew the line, because I shouldn't have to prove my loyalty. They took away my citizenship rights, the government and the people. The public.
Absolutely. I mean, Yoshi Kuramiya was always the most, as you know, the most thoughtful and concise speakers and writers on the Fair Play Committee. And it really comes through in his manuscript that you edited. It's most compelling, I think, when Yoshi shares his personal feelings about speaking up at the mess hall meetings of the Fair Play Committee and enduring jail time with men he didn't really know, and then going to trial in what he calls the circus of the mass trial. But one of the things that he focuses on is the emotional price he pays after his sentencing when he's dumped by his girlfriend from camp. Was that something that I think that, as I recall in the manuscript phase, he was kind of skirting that issue, and I think you and I encouraged him to focus more on that.
No, I don't think he wanted to focus too much on it, but he did come back to it in the book to talk about a later time in his life where he ran into this woman who he had not seen since the time he left camp. And shortly after, he received the Dear Yosh letter. And but he ran into her, and they had a wonderful sort of, embrace and being able to put everything into proper perspective, because she was under the pressure of her family and the entire community at Heart Mountain, really. And so he understood that, although at the time, of course, it really broke his heart.
Yeah, getting that Dear John letter, as he put it, in the Cheyenne County Jail. So I was really glad that he could share that. Yoshi's memoir, it has a lot more of that personal feeling of his personal experience. And as I write in my review of the book, I think that's where Yoshi's memoir is strongest. And but being so insightful, Yoshi is also opinionated, and this is where I thought your editing of the manuscript art really was so helpful, because in your endnotes you really interrogate Yoshi's occasional hyperbole or misstatement. Can you talk a little bit about that, going through the manuscript and coming across places where, for example, he cites these authors, these conspiracy theories about FDR knowingly allowing the attack on Pearl Harbor as a means of drawing the U.S. into war? You add 2 pages of footnotes on that.
Yeah, well, what I was doing when I was editing this was actually creating some firewalls, because I don't think the book would have been accepted for publication unless I did this. And fortunately, I had a copy of the anonymous review that was done by Eric Muller. And because Eric Muller is a professor of law and everything, and had written a wonderful book, about the whole resistor movement, Free to Die for the Country, I was able to hitchhike off of his information and everything else and put these footnotes in there. The other one I did pretty much on my own, the long footnote. So what I did was that I looked up as many book reviews as possible for this review. And there were enough differences that Yos's opinion wasn't so outlandish. There were a lot of people who agreed with his assessment. There were more people who disagreed with it. But I wanted to showcase that so that people could see that this was a disputable thing. And then the way I ended it was by saying, I can understand why he might have felt jaundiced towards Franklin D. Roosevelt. After all, he could have sacrificed people at Pearl Harbor because he sacrificed 110,000 Japanese Americans by signing Executive Order 9066 that consigned them to camp for 3 years or more.
That's absolutely right. It was Robert Stinnett, or Stinnett, Day of Deceit. Yeah. So that was, I thought, a really nice, you very gently kind of corrected the record there for the readers. And also with the Eric Muller material, I thought that was incredibly valuable, where Yosh would say, well, the Fair Play Steering Committee failed us in not appealing our convictions. And then, I think, tell me about how you had the Eric Muller, you called it the Muller critique in the endnotes.
But by the time I got it, the family edition had already been printed, and one of the constraints that I had to operate on, we would not change anything in that manuscript. So the endnotes was where I really had a chance to get some, my hand into it and stuff, and my mind into it. But I was, in fact, I read that somebody has got to write, and maybe you're the right person to write a biography of Frank Emmy.
In my review, I say that your endnotes and Eric's critique are kind of half the value of the book, in addition to Yoshi's memoirs. And just a reading of the endnotes all the way through is an entertaining and informative read. So we encourage people to get Beyond the Betrayal by Yoshi Kuromiya. You mentioned Gail and the daughters in closing, that the volume could have become just a family souvenir, self-published souvenir. So how were you able to get them, the manuscript, from being a self-published thing to a published volume that we can now have?
Well, Lawson Anada contacted me first, and he said that, this family edition is out, and he'd been helping them with them, and he'd written this short stanza, a poetic stanza that was being used for the forward and everything. And then he said, could you do something to beef this up? And I said, well, like an introduction or something. And he said, yeah. So I said, I'll do that. And so then I read through the family thing, and I said, this is a waste to have this just go to his family and his friends. This is an important document, the only one, not only of the resistors at Heart Mountain, but of all the 300 resistors in all the camps. This needed to be published and everything. So I encouraged them, and of course the daughters were very much in favor of it. Yosh's widow, Irene, was not so much in favor of it. She said Yosh wanted just the family edition. And Gail and others thought down deep he really did want this. But for gosh sakes, he was a nonagenarian at that point, and he died not too many years after this. So, he wasn't going to resubmit it to another academic press. He just wanted the family edition to go forth. But I had edited the Omura memoir, so I'd gone through the territory, for God's sake, for 20 years, So I was used to writing endnotes and doing editing, I just said I'd be happy to edit it. It didn't take me very much time at all to edit it. I think I spent at the most about 2 months on it. It's just because of COVID and everything, the press didn't get it together and wasn't able to publish it, so it got delayed by about 1.5 years. But it's been done for quite a while. My part of it was done.
Well, and your part is really wonderful, Art. My last question, you may not be able to answer this, but these are things that 20 years ago, as recently as 20 years ago, year 2000, we weren't talking about draft resistance and resistance oral histories, and we did them, but they weren't really well known. Why do you think that's changed now in the year 2022? We have your books, Barbed Voices, Nisei Naysayer, now Beyond the Trail. Why are these things coming out now?
Well, I'm building on things that people like yourself and Frank Chen and Lawson and a whole group of people, Roger Daniels, Eric Muller. People, it's been accruing over the years. I was writing about it, and Barbed Voices is really a compilation of my articles that, I'd written from 1972 or 74 when the Manzanar Riot article came out. And all of my articles were on resistance of one form or another. So that's an anthology. That's not a single volume, standalone one manuscript. It was really the alleged best ones that I had written over those years. So, but it's been going on. You keeping it alive, Frank, with with the resistors.com, having somebody like Kenji, the son of a resistor, being an editor, a formidable editor, and everything was so helpful. Martha Nakagawa, who stayed with all of this sort of stuff. Everybody was there. The Times were finally getting out. There were a lot of old time JACLers were dying off in part. Really, that's true, because they were a stumbling block to a lot of this sort of thing. And then, of course, the final thing was Donald Trump's presidency. At that particular moment, everything, and now we're seeing people standing up, even Republicans standing up and being as courageous as Yosh was, and being able to say no to the big lie, and so, I think now is a very propitious time to do it, but it's been incrementally being done. So it's not just suddenly Art Hansen comes and does this thing. No, I was, riding the wave, really,
Well, Art, and it's been a wonderful experience just knowing you over the last 4 decades. And I think you're absolutely right that there's certain timing involved. In the last 5 years, the topic of resistance, I've just felt to become more interest and energy around the idea of resistance in World War II Japanese-American incarceration camps and how it sadly relates to our current political climate today. So thank you, Art. Dare I ask what else you have on the horizon?
Yes, I have a manuscript that's been accepted for publication called Manzanar Mosaic, and it's also the University Press of Colorado, and that will be out in early 2023. And then I've got another thing. I've edited a diary of Robert Brown, who was the assistant project director at Manzanar, and it's just his 1942 diary, that very first year of the first concentration camp. And I had done that 30-some years ago, and his widow wanted to borrow the manuscript from me, and then she lost it. And so it was gone. And that would have been one of my first publications. She lost it. Fortunately, her daughter came, or Bob Brown's daughter walked into the Manzanar Center and introduced herself. And the rangers there knew about this story of mine. And so I got in touch with her and I said, do you by any chance? She said, well, I inherited a number of documents and it looks like I've got the one that you and Bob, my father, were working on. So it's his diary and I edited the diary and everything. And then the final thing that I have in the works is a book dealing with Japanese Americans in Arizona during World War II, because there were more Japanese Americans in Arizona than any other place in the United States because of Poston having 3 camps, Gila having 2 camps, and then having Loop there and everything.
Wonderful. Those will all be wonderful and important contributions, Art. So thank you for that. I mean, you've been contributing and continue to contribute, and we're really in your debt. So thank you, Art. My review of Beyond the Betrayal by Yoshikuro Miya, edited by Art Hansen, is in the Nichi Bei's new summer book review issue that'll be out a week from today, July 21st. The issue will also include reviews of 4 book reviews by Art Hansen, Tule Lake Stockade Diary, Asian American Histories of the U.S., A Rebel's Outcry, biography of Issei civil rights leader Sei Fuji, and American Survivors, Trans-Pacific Memories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm told the issue will also include reviews of The Perfect Sound by Garrett Hongo, Contemporary Asian American Activism by Diane Fujino, and also Japan the Cookbook and Ultimate Bento, and a number of children's books too. So a great summer review book issue coming up. Subscribe today to get issues like this and others in your mailbox. Thank you, Art, Kelly, and Ryan. Back to you.
Hello, we're back to do more raffles. My name is Evie Horner and I'm the CFO for Nichi Bei Foundation, and this is Wes Nihei, who is the membership coordinator, and we will be drawing more raffle prizes. Every raffle prize will also get the Japanese American Resource Guide and so let's see who's going to win. Our first prize is a year subscription to the Masterclass, and we'll be giving out 3 of these. California will be winning a master class. Our next prize is the Art of Tofu cookbook. We'll have 2 of these. Patricia Nagamoto of Berkeley, California, and William Wong of Sacramento, California win the Art of Tofu And we have a niche soda and tofu lunch bag. We have 2 of those. And those will be going to Nancy Yukai of Berkeley and Deb and Art Hansen of Yorba Linda, California. Congratulations to them. And we have a naysayer book that will go to Jane Naito of San Francisco, California. So Yuki, you will be introducing our next segments.
Thank you, Les and Edie, for the raffle. Next, we will focus on summer festivals, one of the most exciting parts, I think, of any festival. So some of the Nichi Bei Cafe segments will be shown, which show the reemergence of the San Jose Obon. But first, we have Nichi Bei Cafe producer Greg Valoria reflecting on his favorite video segment thus far.
Hi. So in Hi. So in 2022, we launched a new Japanese-American lifestyle web show called Nichi Bei Cafe. In fact, a lot of content on this year's Day of Giving is from the show. In late 2021, Kenji told me that the foundation received a grant from the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Foundation to start a Japanese-American lifestyle show. One of the roles I see myself as video producer for Nichi Bei Weekly is to implement the ideas Kenji has for content. One of the goals of the program was to augment the great print stories that our writers were creating with that of video. After a few collaborative meetings with staff, we came up with the name Nichi Bei Cafe. We like food here at Nichi Bei, so why not? We developed the flow of the show to follow a menu in a restaurant from appetizer, salad, main course, all the way up to the nightcap segments. We wanted to put a younger face also on this program, so we enlisted Kelly and Ryan of our staff to be our hosts, and we started appropriately with the first episode, which was Day of Remembrance and Film Remembrance. Kelly and Ryan were perfect as their in-office play translates really nicely to the show, and we started scripting eventually for them as time went on. My favorite part of the show is being able to document other Japanese American communities like what we did on the islands of Hawaii, visiting the Okinawa Cultural Center of Hawaii, Japanese American Cultural Center of Hawaii, and making a quick stop to a multi-generational business, Aloha Tofu, as well as shooting all the episodes for the Gochiso Gourmet you see on Nichi Bei Cafe. However, my favorite segment was the story on the San Jose Obon Festival, as I'm very spiritual. It was my first time down there, and to capture it coming back in person with its unique legacy to Reverend Iwanaga's introduction of Bonodori in the United States, I was truly grateful. So if you like content like what you're seeing on Nichi Bei Cafe, I urge you to donate or secure a membership to Nichi Bei to help us create more content like what you're seeing today. Thank you so much. 90 years, the San Jose Buddhist Church has celebrated the coming of the ancestors, or Obon, through dance known as Bon Odori. But since the last Obon festival in 2019, the San Jose Obon Festival has been celebrating the heart of Obon online. In 2022, the San Jose Obon Festival is back. And what makes San Jose Obon unique, perhaps, is live musical performances by San Jose Taiko and San Jose Chidori Band, including several collaborations between the two iconic groups like the Shiawase Samba. We spent time at the festivities of the first day with Ken Kame, 2022 Festival Chair, to collect his thoughts on coming back.
So coming out of the pandemic, what challenges did you have to restart Obon?
There were numerous challenges. Mostly, there was a sentiment to have Obon again, but it seems as time went on, there was a real difficulty getting everyone to come back to staff all of the various activities that this Obon used to have. Some people might have, through maybe aging or just concerns over the environment now, health, in terms of health, the general health too. As you saw here, we had a number of dances, but nowhere near what we had in the past as our biggest event. But one of the real concerns I had was that to make it as comfortable as possible for our guests here. So with Dennis's help, we really tried to do that, and we increased not only the length of the lines, the dance lines, but the distance. So there's spacing. We increased the spacing between the dancers a great deal this year versus 2019.
Our executive producer, Kenji Taguma, caught up with longtime lead choreographer Reiko Iwanaga to get her thoughts on this year's Bon Odori and legacy to her father-in-law, Yoshio Iwanaga, who introduced Bon Odori to America.
How does it feel to be back on the Yagura?
It's nice to see everyone dancing again, and it was a surprise to see as many people as we had again. You know, I thought there might be a lull after our 2-year break, but it's nice that everyone's enjoying themselves again.
Speaking of Reverend Yoshio Iwanaga, it's been 91 years since he started Bon Odori in America. How does it feel to carry on that legacy of your father-in-law?
Well, it is important, and I feel very honored and special to be able to continue it. And my entire family was here dancing today, which was really nice. I made one, I don't know if it's a mistake, but the reason I picked Gusei Koshin Kyoku was that someone had said it was the 100th anniversary, and it wasn't. And that's why I brought that dance in. I thought it was nice to have Reverend Iwanaga's original choreography beyond Obon no Ta.
To our pleasant surprise, we bumped into Janice Hirohama, a minister's assistant at the Orange County Buddhist Church, who frequents all the Southern California Obon festivals and considers herself an Obon fanatic. Janice shares her feelings about her first trip to the San Jose Obon Festival.
My name is Janice Hirohama, and I live in Manhattan Beach, California. I'm a member of the Orange County Buddhist Church, and I am an Obon fanatic. So I'm really happy to be here at the San Jose Obon for the first time. San Jose is famous, of course, for the sheer number of dancers and the wonderful setting in the street in historic San Jose, Japantown. So I'm just really thrilled to be here and soaking in the atmosphere and enjoying the history of it all, and really happy to be here. It's a lot of fun. I love the energy, a lot of young folks here. It's so big. There are like 3 different yaguras, a lot of people dressed wonderfully in yukata. Very special to have the band, the Chidori band, and the Taiko group, and you know, it just adds a lot with the live music.
You call yourself an Obon fanatic. How many Obon festivals do you go to every year?
In a typical year, pre-pandemic, I would go to a festival every year, every weekend. I would go to a festival every weekend. We have a lot of them in Southern California at all the different Buddhist temples, and also Nisei Week and some community festivals as well. One of the things that is really meaningful about going to Obon festivals is I love dancing the Bon Odori. For me as a Buddhist, it has a lot of significance because, you know, we are really supposed to dance in joy and gratitude, remembering our loved ones, our ancestors who came before us. And so there's a lot of spiritual significance to the Obon festivals and to the dance. And that's something that means a lot to me.
And it means a lot to the 900 plus people who danced the Bon Odori to bring it back live in 2022. This is Greg Valoria for Kenji Taguma for the Nichi Bei Cafe.
So the history of Obon can be traced back to a couple different things. First being the Buddhist story of Moggallana, who was one of the Buddha's disciples. And there is a legend about his ability to see into different realms of existence. And he saw his mother in the realm of the hungry ghosts, which is a terrible realm that you're born into after you have a selfish life. And it's called the realm of the hungry ghost because they can't eat anything even though they're starving. Their mouths are very small. If any food actually does get close to their lips, then it bursts into flames. So this terrible existence, and being very distraught about this, being unable to help his mother send any food to her or anything, he went to the Buddha, and the Buddha told Moggallana that he should give an offering to the monks who were coming back from a retreat, and in doing so would create enough good merit, good karma for his mother to be born into a better place. And so Moggallana did as the Buddha asked, and sure enough, when he looked again, then his mother was no longer suffering. So he was so happy that it said that he continued to do this every year, give the offerings to all the monks, and within our tradition, it said that he jumped up and danced with joy. And so I say that because this celebration of having like a feast can be found in many different cultures throughout Asia. However, Japan is the only one that has dancing that goes along with it. And so this is the combination of the influence of Buddhism as well as Chinese culture intermingling with Japanese culture. So in Japan, for a long time, it's believed that the souls of people who have passed away come back on the backs of dragonflies, or actually change shape and take the form of dragonflies, because during this kind of summer autumn time, that's when a lot of dragonflies are present. And so to welcome them, also to guide them back to where they came from, which is where we see the like Toronagashi, like the floating lantern festival, things like that. So this belief that the souls of the deceased come back during this time, coupled with this Chinese Buddhist influence of ancestor worship, as well as the legend of Moggallana coming together, was a great amalgamation of these two cultures. And then the dancing, supposedly from my research, comes from when a place called Sanuki, which is currently Kagawa Prefecture, was in a terrible drought. And hoping to end it, the governor of that area, who was Sugawara no Michizane, he fasted and he prayed for 7 days and 7 nights, and it was answered where they had rain, and people were so happy that they danced, and they danced every year as sort of a ritual, but then also like thanking the gods or the spirits for being able to give them a good harvest. The founder of Jodo Shinju, Shinran, his teacher Honen, was exiled, and he was originally supposed to go someplace else, but he ended up going to this region. And when he got there, he saw people doing this dance, and instead of being grateful or thanking the spirits or the gods, he told them that they should be chanting the Nembutsu. And so in that area, they still do this Nembutsu odori, or Nembutsu dance, And supposedly this is the origin of Bonodori, or the combination of dancing along with this holiday. So all that together is why we now have Obon Odori, although, now I think probably dancing is more emphasized than anything else, but that's where the origin comes from. Since Sacramento is the second oldest temple, and San Francisco, as I've heard, has been doing it over 90 years, we're probably close to 90 years we've been doing Obon Odori. My vision or hope, I suppose, would be it becomes more of a community event for the Northern California area, that if we can involve the community, if we can make it something that people are not just coming to, appreciate Buddhism or Japanese culture, but for there to be, a little more of an exchange there, then I think that would be wonderful. It's very important for us as we have deep history in Japanese immigrants, Japanese Americans, and their contributions over 100 years in the area. And so it's important for myself, and I'm sure many members of the temple, to continue to carry that on through this annual festival. At the same time, I think as we've changed, as people have passed away and we have new generations, definitely the focus, the knowledge, the ability to teach, all of that has changed over the years. And so if we look into the future, I hope that we can be a center to bring together the entire community, of giving what we can in terms of our culture for the rest of the community. But having everyone involved, I think, would be hopefully the future.
Special thanks to the Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund for their generous donation of $15,000. Thanks to this extremely generous contribution, we are only $5,050 away from our matching $60,000 donation from the Craig Foundation. Please, please, please help us reach this goal. Now, special thanks to the Craig Foundation and Craig Harmer for his amazing support over the past several years. Your matching donations has truly helped us in our fundraising efforts. Now, let's continue with our program. Next, we look at entrepreneurship in the Nikkei community, examining Tanaka Farms in Irvine, California, and Bachchan's Japanese barbecue sauce in Sebastopol, California.
As we saw a 116-year-old beloved business in our community close its doors, new legacies are born in our community as well. Akiko Managa caught up with Justin Gill, founder and CEO of Bachchan's, a Sebastopol-based food business specializing in the family's secret sauce recipe from his beloved Bachchan. Let's hear about Justin's story.
For our business, for our sauce, our brand is named Bachchan's, and it's named after my Bachchan. So before the war, she was living in Sebastopol, and she during the war was taken to Camp Amachi in Colorado, and after they were released, she came back actually to Sebastopol, and she lived along with her family on an apple ranch here in Sebastopol, the Perry Apple Ranch. That's she's who our brand is named after, and I'm honored to do that. And she's who taught my parents how to make our sauce, our multi-generational family sauce. And they all together taught me when I was a young kid. I just noticed, from a young age, how much people loved our family sauce, and just thought it would be really cool to bring it to market one day. So yeah, fast forward to about 2013, and I decided to kind of take a shot at bringing our sauce to market, and I went to all the co-packers here in Northern California, all the formulators, and I took them our family recipe. And I didn't know much about really anything about food production. I studied horticulture science in school. I talked to all the co-packers and formulators, and just saw a pattern develop really quickly that they all told me that to commercialize our family sauce, I would need to pasteurize it and then add water to it to bring the cost of the ingredients down. And so I tried that, and it just completely changed everything about the sauce. I mean, you know, if I was gonna do this and it was gonna represent our family legacy, I wanted to make sure it was, you know, had the integrity of the product that I grew up with and loved so much, and all of our family friends also loved. So I started to kind of work on formulating the sauce myself. It is, you know, perfecting everything. Like, it's just something that I've always done. And when I took my family to actually on a heritage trip. My wife is Cambodian. We went to Cambodia for 2 weeks, and then we went to Japan for 2 weeks after that. And it was in 2017. It was right kind of in the middle when I was getting very close to finishing, you know, the sauce. And I went over to Japan, went to Kyoto, and went to Tokyo, and for the first time, and just had so many like questions about myself answered. And I think one of the things that I really appreciated is just how much pride they took in their craft, and you know how much they had this singular focus, and so that just like really kind of inspired me to a whole new level. When I got back from the trip, that's when I really started stepping on the gas. And having a little background in science, I was able to, you know, over about a 2-year period, just doing it on the side, I was able to finally figure out how to make our sauce cold filled and shelf stable. And during that time, I actually elevated the ingredients that we used growing up and sourced, you know, the best ingredients in the world. I took that back to the same co-packers, and none of them wanted to take on the business. And one of them in particular, you know, as I was telling him about all these ingredients that I sourced and how great they were, he kind of stopped me in my tracks and said, listen, your ingredients don't matter. And all that matters is how much money you have to market this product. So I disagreed with him and left their facility. And actually, you know, today our tagline is something we have trademarked from that period, is our ingredients matter. So after that, I went down to Southern California, couldn't find anyone here in Northern Cal, and found a co-packer that would take on the business that I thought would, you know, meet the quality standards that I had. And my wife and I went down on our 15-year wedding anniversary, got our first production run done, brought the pallets back, and started selling right away. We went and did, you know, demos at local stores here, started selling out on the shelf. We launched a website, started selling direct to consumer. Everything was going really well, and then the pandemic, you know, hit, and we started, you know, shipping from our home. Our kids were all home, so we used to pack the orders at our house. My Bachchan would come over, and my mom, and we'd get everything boxed up, and then I would take a drive down to the post office with my kids, and we unload all the packages. And we were doing that a few times a week. And then we started doing it every day. And then our whole house kind of turned into a distribution center. And then ended up closing 2020 with really strong sales with our, you know, original Japanese barbecue sauce. And then 2021, we introduced some new SKUs, some new products to the market. We brought out a gluten-free version, a hot and spicy, and then a yuzu. Part of doing this business for me, one part was for my family legacy, to also teach my kids, you know, what you can do, what you can achieve in the world if you work really hard and believe in yourself and keep persevering. And the other part was to be able to share Japanese American culture, you know, with the rest of the world. And that's something that we do with intention, and something that we do in I think a very inclusive way. So that has been awesome, and that's something I saw my family do growing up. My Bachchan, my Ji-chan, my auntie and uncles, you know, they shared their culture and would have their friends, you know, from all different cultures over, and so to be able to do that and carry that forward is meaningful for me too. So there's a lot of them. They're just little sayings and things that that I picked up on and remembered throughout my whole life that my Bachchan would tell me and my brothers and sisters. You know, one of them is the world is your oyster, and she still writes that, and so does my mom actually on all of our birthday cards and Christmas cards and things.
And Bachchan's Japanese barbecue sauce continues to be the pearl from Sebastopol. This is Greg Gloria for Akiko Minaga for the Nichi Bei Cafe.
Located in the Southern California city of Irvine, Tanaka Farms is a real working farm where visitors can explore the world of agriculture. The farm grows 60 different kinds of fruits and vegetables throughout the year, but what makes it so special is its agro-tourism programming. Visitors can come tour the fields, pick strawberries and vegetables, learn about barnyard animals, take cooking classes, and much more. The farm is run by Glenn Tanaka and his son Kenny. Kenny represents the fourth generation of the Tanaka family to have farmed in America. His great-grandfather, Teruo, immigrated from Japan in the early 1900s.
Tanaka Farms is our family farm. I do a little bit of everything from the agritourism part, office work, a little bit in the field, managing what's going on, and just pretty much day-to-day operations. So throughout the year we have different activities and tours that we do. Right now for March through June we do our strawberry tours. Usually when we have school kids we get about 15,000 school kids coming out. On the weekends, we could get up to 40 to 50,000 adults and children throughout the spring months for our strawberry tours. During the summer months, we do our watermelon tours, some corn tours. So we try to give you a little bit of a tour of the farm. We take you around in our tractor-pulled wagon, take you out in the field, show you how things are planted, showing how things are grown. Then you'll get to pick some of the different vegetables that we have. Biggest thing is we try to let you taste it while you're out here, so you pick it. You can eat it right away, taste the difference of the vegetables. Even the adults get a kick out of it, get it fresh, and you pick the nice juicy one that you like, and it tastes a lot better. That's where I really get my joy, seeing the kids picking their own fruits and vegetables. And farming is a lot of hard work, and to have appreciation for where your food comes from.
In addition to its agro-tourism programming, Tanaka Farms is focused on celebrating its Japanese roots. One way it honors these roots is through Walk the Farm, an annual fundraiser launched as a way to help farmers affected by the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Another way it honors its roots is with an exhibit called The Issei and Nisei Farmers, Their Legacy. This exhibit, which showcases Japanese American farming histories, is on display at Tanaka Farms and online.
This wall, the Issei and Nisei Farmers, Their Legacy, was a project that we came up with to highlight, really the struggles of our ancestors. We're getting to the next generation now, the Yonsei and the Gosei, where they're so far out of touch they don't know what grandma, grandpa, great-grandpa, great-grandpa did. It's a conversation piece to get the generations to talk and explore. The important part about really the Issei and Nisei legacy is that it was pre-World War II, and then that part of history we want to forget, the internment where many of the farmers lost their property. It was a painful time, and so not only a conversation about the history of the farm, but about the concentration camps that occurred during that period. For us Japanese Americans, that's our legacy. We only have about 80 up here on this wall right now, and on the website at walkthefarm.org, you can see all these stories that are on there on the website. We're hoping to get over 1,000. Since farming was a big thing with the Japanese American community, it seems like every area has their book or their kind of library of farming history for that area. So we're just trying to put it all together from the different areas and kind of have a central base for it, I guess. Tanaka Farms has evolved over the years from a strictly wholesale to now a total direct retail and really an agritourism spot. And in that transition, we were able to open the farm up more to the community, and with that, of course, me being Japanese American, I really opened up to the Japanese American community. People come to our farm because they want to support a local farm, and they want to know about me. They want to know about Tanaka Farms. And so the more they get to know about Tanaka Farms, they know that we're involved in the JA community, and our interest and our connection with our history here.
Tanaka Farms is located just south of the 405 freeway at the intersection of University Drive and Strawberry Farm Road. Fresh fruits and vegetables are available for purchase at the Tanaka Farms Walk-Up Produce Market Stand, open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Reservations for guided U-Pick farm tours, educational workshops, and other agro-tourism programs can be made online. Visit tanakafarms.com for more information. This is Alec Yoshio McDonald reporting for the Nichi Bei Cafe.
Hi, welcome. My name is Edie Horner, and I am the CFO for the Nichi Bei Foundation.
And I'm Wes Nihei, Membership Coordinator.
So we're doing the raffle, and our first prize is 2 master classes for a 1-year subscription, and every raffle prize gets the Japanese American Cultural Resource Guide and the Anthology of Atomic Bomb. So let's pull our 2 masterclass prizes. So congratulations to George Sasaki of San Francisco, California, and Tureiko Suruki of San Mateo, California. We have 2 DVDs of Farewell to Manzanar that we're going to give away. Congratulations to Joan Powers of San Jose, California, and to Beth Abiko and Jim Gibson of Sunnyvale, California. I only have 1 Art of Tofu cookbook. The winner is Bart Beeman of San Mateo, California. And then we have 2 soy and tofu lunch bags. Congratulations to Michael Kurihara of San Francisco, California, and Emi Gusukama of Foster City, California. And Yuki, come on in.
Thank you again, Wes and Edie. And to everybody here tuned in again, thanks again for your support of the Nichi Bei Foundation. As we enter our last hour of today's program, we invite you to support any of our wonderful funds at www.nichibei.org/give-to-Nichi-Bei. Your support means so much to us as we continue to serve the Japanese community in many ways. Next, we will focus on cultural treasures in the community, including Hayward's Japanese Garden, the Hawaii Okinawa Center, the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii. Please enjoy.
The beautiful Hayward Japanese Gardens is tucked away in an area off of downtown Hayward. Work started on this 1.2-acre hidden treasure in 1979 by master gardener from Japan, Kimio Kimura, who used the principles of traditional Japanese garden art. The gardens, which was completed and dedicated in 1980, would not have been completed without the support of the local Japanese American community. Nichi Bei Weekly writer Akiko Managa sat down with Wes Sakamoto and Robert Sakai to talk about the history and elements of the garden.
Well, it's not really truly a Japanese garden, and what Kimio tried to do here was to incorporate local California plants with Japanese plants. Well, one thing about Japanese gardens and Kimio, you don't see too many flowers. I mean, Japanese gardens are mostly all evergreen trees and shrubs. I guess, they're not trying to be flamboyant with a lot of camellias and rhododendrons and flowering plants. Well, one of the things was this was a 1-acre site. He wanted to make it appear a lot larger by creating illusions of space, and we had a lot of the existing trees growing along the creek, and in like Japanese gardens in Japan, they call that borrowed scenery. Like I said, we have 800 tons of stone in this garden.
Robert Sakai, a young lawyer at the time, talks about the beginnings of the gardens.
But the idea came from a former Hayward city councilman, and he was one of my bosses in my law office, Jay Birchfield. He took me out here one day in, I think, 1975, and I think he had gone to high school here at the Hayward High School, and at that point in 1975, this was an old botanical gardens, but it was a mess. And he was on the Hayward City Council, and he thought this should be a nice garden, and so we talked about doing a Japanese garden. When this started in the mid-1970s, there was a significant community of nurseries that were owned by Japanese Americans. There were a number of nurseries back then, and I think that was the impetus for the garden.
Both Robert and Wes share what they love about the gardens.
I like that it's like an island in the middle of Hayward. If you come here, like I used to work in a building across the way, and I would come here and have lunch in that pavilion, and I liked it because I could look out on the garden and see greenery, and then in the background I could hear the creek, and that's a nice setting.
Well, my favorite part is the koi pond and how we arrived at how it should be shaped and whatever, and we had a lot of the koi fish donated to us.
Anybody that doesn't know about Hayward's Japanese garden should come and walk around, bring a lunch, because it's a very peaceful location.
So you really feel like you're on an island with a Japanese-style garden.
The Gardens is located off A Street in Hayward. The Hayward Japanese Gardens is open daily, except for Christmas, from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and is free to the public. This is Greg Gloria for Akiko Managa for the Nichi Bei Cafe. Aloha! The beautiful Hawaii Okinawa Center is home to the Hawaii United Okinawa Association. It serves as a living tribute to the original Okinawan pioneers who worked in the sugar and pineapple plantations with the hope of creating a better life. The Okinawan culture is thriving and strong because of its 100-plus year history in the islands of Hawaii. We sat down with John Itomura, Executive Director of Hawaii United Okinawa Association, as he describes the origins of the Hawaii United Okinawa Association.
The Hawaii United Okinawa Association, or HUOA, was established in 1951, and this came about as a result of the Battle of Okinawa, or World War II. So, Battle of Okinawa devastated all of Okinawa, and Hawaii was one of many that wanted to help with the post-war relief effort. In order to do that, the military asked that we operate through one organization. Therefore, although we've had several Okinawan organizations prior to that, in 1951 we created HUOA to assist with that effort. And so formally established HUOA. The relief effort actually started a lot earlier in and around 1948.
John Itomura himself is a descendant of people who personally brought items to the devastated post-World War II Okinawa.
You know, so here in Hawaii, when we learned about the devastation in Okinawa, all the Uchinanchus at heart all banded together, raised money, you know, to the tune of probably $500,000 in today's money for the first effort of bringing 550 pigs to Okinawa, which included my grandfather being one of 7 men to take the pigs to Okinawa. But this created, you know, a line of other relief efforts and the bond between Hawaii and Okinawa to show even Okinawa till today that we have this connection, and Uchinanchus around the world have this connection.
The Hawaii United Okinawa Association is housed in the Hawaii Okinawa Center. Ground was broken for the two-building complex in March of 1989 and was opened 15 months later in June of 1990. The defining features of the building are its roof tiles, roof tile mounted shisa or lions which wards off evil, and the Okinawan-style turtle-back roofs. John shares an interesting fact that shows the bonds between Okinawa and Hawaii.
And the unique thing about these shisas is they were made from the clay of both Hawaii and Okinawa.
Like many cultural centers of its type, it is home to clubs and social activities. Today's Hawaii United Okinawa Association maintains the grounds and center with a few staff and a handful of volunteers. The outside grounds have several defining features like the Takakura Gardens with its beautiful koi pond and waterfall, and the Issei Garden which honors Kyozo Toyama, which encouraged immigration outside of Okinawa. The association brings its members together through the yearly Okinawa Festival held on Labor Day.
So one of the annual events that we have each year is our Okinawan Festival. Clearly the largest ethnic festival here in the state of Hawaii and possibly across the United States. So back in the late 80s, again through the urging of Okinawa through its governor, you know, they wanted Hawaii to bring its young leaders to Okinawa, and they created an Aloha Leadership Tour. And through this tour, they went and they experienced the Naha Festival in Okinawa. And they felt so much passion, they felt so much excitement about their own culture. They said, we have to bring this home. And so by coming back home in and around 1981, they started the Hawaii Okinawa Festival. Through the Okinawan Festival, all the clubs and even beyond are brought together in a volunteer effort. On an annual basis, we have over 4,000 volunteers working at our two-day Okinawan Festival every Labor Day weekend. We have visitors from Japan, we have visitors from Okinawa, we have performers from Okinawa that come down to participate. So we have 2 full days of performances starting at 9 in the morning on Saturday, going through 10 p.m. at night with our Obon dance, and then continuing from Sunday morning all the way to about 5 p.m. And it's just overwhelming the amount of culture that you see in those 2 days.
You can find information about this festival or their visiting hours at huoa.org. This is Greg Gloria for the Nichi Bei Cafe. Aloha. The Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii, located in the Mo'iliili area of Honolulu, was started in 1987, and the current building opened in 1994. We visited Nate Gyotoku, President and Executive Director at the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii, to learn more about the center.
So the JCCH was founded in 1987 by the Honolulu Japanese Chamber of Commerce. So the land we sit on used to be the Chamber's clubhouse, and then they formed the Cultural Center and built the Cultural Center that you see today. So we're actually celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. And you know, the facility has our administration offices, but also the Okage-sama Day and Gallery and the Honouliuli Education Center, the Kenshikan Dojo, a Sekoan Tea House, and of course our ballrooms on the top floor.
Nate took over his current role during the pandemic and had to find creative ways of reaching their audience that was isolated by the pandemic.
So Normally, pre-COVID, we would offer tours of Okage-sama Day and the Honolulu Education Center. But since COVID hit, we've been closed. We have reopened, and the gift shop and the Honolulu Education Center is open, but the Okage-sama Day Gallery is still closed. But what we did instead is we did a virtual tour of the Okage-sama Day Gallery with our docents, our volunteer docents, and we have that posted on our YouTube channel. So we're trying to create content to go out to our members and to our students instead of waiting for them to come to us.
One of the original exhibits at the center is the Okage-sama Day exhibit, which tracks the history of the Japanese in the Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah, the Okage-sama Day exhibit is actually about 30 years old itself too. So it was opened in the mid-90s, and it's based on a book by Jane Komeiji, which is entitled Okage-sama Day. And herself, Tom Kobe, they kind of curated the whole exhibit, and it really chronicles the history of our community from the Ganin Mono, so the first arrivals in 1868, through plantation life to war, and then post-war Hawaii. So it's a real nice kind of overview of the history of our community here in Hawaii.
Honolulu is a site that was discovered where Japanese Americans were incarcerated after the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
So originally Honolulu was the journey to rediscovery started in about 1997. Our research center across the courtyard there, which is our research library, got a phone call from a local TV station doing a story about Schindler's List. And they asked about Hawaii having an internment camp. And at the time, we didn't know. We didn't have any information. But that kind of sparked our volunteers. And the volunteers are the ones that started doing the research and the legwork. And as they started digging, they started to find stories. More and more people, families started to come out and mentioned that they were incarcerated, and then we started to find out more about the Hawaii incarceration story.
Although the actual Honolulu site near Waipahu is still closed by the National Park Service, you can still learn a lot about Honolulu at the center's Honolulu Education Center.
So on our website, we actually do have an online internee database that we've been putting together of the Hawaii people who got incarcerated, so they can start there. And we do a pretty good job of tracking that person's movement through different camps. So if they ended up at Honolulu, they might be at Sand Island and Honolulu. But if some of them a lot of them did go to the continent, so we'll track their movements. They can come here to get some information, and then they can also visit our resource center. And usually we have a lot more information there too for them.
The center is 10 minutes away by car from Ala Moana and off exit 24 Bingham Street off H1. The center is open 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday. Please go to their Facebook page for the latest information, and don't forget to check out their great gift shop. This is Greg Gloria from the Nichi Bei Cafe. Mahalo.
Segment. Now we will look at the sad end of the era, the closing of Benkyodo, San Francisco, Japantown's last manjuya.
The end of San Francisco Japantown's oldest and one of its most beloved family-run businesses came to an end March 31, 2022, as Benkyodo served its Japanese confectionaries for the last time to the public. The business, founded in 1906, is as old as Japantown itself, having witnessed 2 forced relocations of the community, several wars, and a dwindling of the community over the years. In its last weeks, as word spread of the mochi and manju shops closing, people came from all over the country, some lining up for 6 hours or more just to get a final sampling of mochi and manju. One such person was guaranteed to be at the very front of the line on Benkyodo's last Saturday on March 26, setting up a long 9-hour wait by pitching a tent to shield themselves from the elements. Many in line were younger members of the public who were determined to get a final taste of some of the newer fruit varieties like strawberry mochi or traditional sweets. Sheltered from the growing throng of fans were members of the Okamura family, led by co-owners and brothers Ricky and Bobby Okamura, who were making their last manju and mochi treats for the anxious crowd. They were tucked away in the back of the shop, tucked away just like the an, or red bean paste, they were stuffing into what they call confections that win affection. As they finished up the last batch, the Okamura family shared one final toast, the very end of a legacy that started more than 115 years ago by their grandfather, Tsuyoshi Okamura. This sweet legacy was passed down to his son, Hirofumi Hippo Okamura, and his wife Sue in 1951, and eventually to their sons, Ricky and Bobby, in 1990. For Lori Matoba, the great-granddaughter of Tsuyoshi Okamura, the ending was bittersweet. Matoba has worked at the store since she was little, sweeping and making cardboard boxes in the back, and started helping to make manju 20 years ago. She now works at the Japanese Cultural and Community Center of Northern California, down the street. Benkyodo was not only a confectionery, however, but it also had a cafe where folks would gather for coffee or sandwiches. A place where everyone knows your name. It not only served coffee and sandwiches, but it served as a social need as well. It was a place where you can meet people who were otherwise hard to get a hold of, said longtime employee Yoshiko Sasa, who would greet many Japanese-speaking people who used to hang out at the cafe. As the Okamura family emerged out of the store and into retirement, a large gathering that had swelled on Buchanan Mall met them with applause, signs of appreciation, and hugs and handshakes. The brothers had a few words of appreciation themselves.
Hi, my name is Ricky. I'm the boss. I'm a man of few words, so I just want to say thank you to all my cousins, my friends, she's up there too, and Glenda for putting up with me. Yes! I was going to say something. Oh, yeah. Just want to thank every one of you for your support through all these years and always seeing a smiling face, because I'm unapproachable. Now we have Bobby say a few words.
Okay, hi, I'm Bobby. I also just want to thank everybody for coming out for this occasion. It's good news for Japantown that we could get together like this and celebrate. Celebration, nothing negative, something good, positive celebration. And also, I want to thank Lori and her staff for putting this all together. She's the one who, Lori's worked tirelessly hard on this project, so please give her a hand. And again, just thank you for everybody for coming out and supporting us throughout these years. It's been our pleasure, and I hope we did a good enough job for everybody. I think we did. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
The community came out in full force to wish Japantown's oldest and most beloved business a fond farewell.
Yes. Hi, we're back for a new raffle. I'm Edie Moriguchi Horner, and I'm the CFO for the Nichi Bei Foundation.
And I'm Wes Nihei, Membership Coordinator.
So we have for our first prize a soy and tofu festival lunch bag, plus every prize gets a community resource guide and the Atomic Bomb Tanka anthology. So let's see who goes first.
One more time.
One more time.
Oh, we got 2 winners already.
Art Aki Nakatomi of Daly City, California. Our next prize is the Art of Tofu cookbook. Kiyoshi Naito, San Francisco, California. Congratulations. Our next prize is Barbed Voices, written by Arthur A. Hansen. Peter and Ayako Yi of San Francisco, congratulations. We have 2 Farewell for Manzanar DVDs. Keiko Wright of San Rafael, congratulations. And Marika Taguma of Union City, congratulations. And then we have 2 master classes, 1-year subscription. Ken and Yoshiko Ho of San Francisco, California, and Nobuaki Hanoka of Daly City, California. Congratulations. Yuki, come on in.
Thank you, Edie and Wes again, and congratulations to the winners. Next, we will look at Films of Remembrance, our signature educational event, starting with some reflections by Wes Nihei. Now remember, Films of Remembrance is just one of the many things that Nichi Bei focuses on, and your donation will help with that. So just wanting to say, please do give us any sort of support that you can. Thank you so much, and please enjoy.
Hello, my name is Wes Nihei, and I'm the membership coordinator of the Nichi Bei Weekly. I'd like to share with you one of my favorite events that the Nichi Bei Foundation puts on every year. The Nichi Bei Foundation's Films of Remembrance event showcases films about the Japanese American experience. It's a rich visual record of the contributions Japanese Americans and the Japanese American community have made and continue to make to history, culture, and current events. For me, these films always reveal the deep wealth of important and inspirational stories that Japanese Americans have to tell. Being a San Francisco guy, they enable me to appreciate shared experiences and a feeling of connection with Japanese American communities in places like Chicago, Seattle, New York, and many others. And you just might be amazed by the informative, creative, and impressive visual storytelling that showcases the talent, inspiration, and determination of community filmmakers to tell our story. So I invite you to join the Nichi Bei family of members so you can receive the best Japanese American community newspaper in the country and experience events like the Films of Remembrance to keep the community connected and informed throughout the year.
Next, we will look at the atomic bomb commemoration, A Remembrance for Peace, which we co-present with the Friends of Hibakusha.
The virtual Remembrance for Peace commemorating Hiroshima and Nagasaki programs has truly been a collaborative effort between the Nichi Bei Foundation and the Friends of Hibakusha and the Japanese Religious Federation of San Francisco. Our first virtual program of remembrance in 2020 observed the 75th anniversary of the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August 6th, and 3 days later on Nagasaki on August 9th, 1945, thus unleashing the legacy of the nuclear age upon the world. It is through such educational programs, such as the Remembrance for Peace commemorating Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that helps to keep what happened then remembered, and the wish that it shall never be repeated or forgotten. We hope that we have been able to bring to viewers moments of reflection and remembrance through special observances such as the interfaith service and the litany of water offering, and lanterns of remembrance offered by descendants whose loved ones have passed as a result of the atomic bombings, and the Todo Nagashi floating lantern ceremony. It is also through the voices of the Hibakusha sharing their personal stories and the stories of what happened, presented and captured in the screening of thoughtful and moving films, the visual arts, photography, poetry reading, and music to be remembered and not forgotten. The hibakusha are the last witnesses to the tragic and traumatic consequences of a nuclear holocaust. The heartfelt message shared by all hibakusha, as well as their families and descendants, and by all of us, is the impact that nuclear warfare will have upon the future of our children and on our planet, and our pleas for continuing world peace.
Next, we will have a Lanterns of Remembrance ceremony, featuring lanterns floated in remembrance of the hibakusha.
The virtual Remembrance for Peace
Next, we will have a Lanterns of Remembrance ceremony, featuring lanterns floated in remembrance of the hibakusha by the hibakusha and their descendants. They are set to the backdrop of a Toronagashi ceremony presented by the Sokoji Soto Mission of San Francisco on August 6th, the 77th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima, Japan.
In Japan, it is said that the spirits of our ancestors come back annually to visit us for several days around July 15th. Some regions of Japan also light bonfires, so the ancestors will find their way home to visit their families, while other areas make paper lanterns, otoro, that are cast down the river with names of those who have passed away or a message for them to read. Each lantern has a family name in Japanese, along with specific persons they are remembering on this occasion.
First, we're honored to have Jack Dairiki, a hibakusha from Hiroshima, representing the Dairiki family and all victims of atomic bombs, to float 2 lanterns. Next, offering a lantern of remembrance in honor of her brother Yoshikatsu Fukuta, a Hiroshima hibakusha, is Seiko Fujimoto, herself a hibakusha or atomic bomb survivor from Hiroshima. Next, offering a lantern of remembrance for Kyoko Hanaoka, a Nagasaki hibakusha, is Reverend Gary Barbary. Reverend Barbary is also offering a lantern for Kazuko Hanaoka, a Nagasaki hibakusha. Next, offering a lantern of remembrance for his mother, the late Reverend Fumiko Matsui of the Konko Church of San Francisco, a Hiroshima hibakusha, is Reverend Alan Matsui at the Konko Church of San Francisco. Next, offering the lantern of remembrance for both May Okubo Hartman and her sister Kei Okubo Yoshioka, 2 members of the Konko Church, former members of the Konko Church of San Francisco, is Reverend Joanne Tolosa, head minister of the Konko Church of San Francisco. Next, offering a lantern of remembrance for her father, Atsushi Endo, a Hiroshima hibakusha, is Nina Kadera. Next, offering a lantern of remembrance for Ken Nakano, a Hiroshima hibakusha, as well as her late husband, Sueharu Fujimoto, also a Hiroshima hibakusha, is Seiko Fujimoto, assisted by Jerry Honda of Friends of Hibakusha. Next, offering a lantern of remembrance for her late husband Robert Rusky, a longtime Friends of Hibakusha president, is his widow, Karen Kai, also a member of Friends of Hibakusha. Offering a lantern of remembrance for Michiko Tatsuguchi, a Hiroshima Hibakusha, is her daughter Suzanne Yoshi. Suzanne is joined tonight by her daughters Michi Yoshi Nguyen and Sachi Yoshi, and her fiance Eric Fuller, as well as her husband Reverend Michael Yoshi.
Next, we have Kota and Yuta Suzuki in Sendai, Japan, presenting a lantern in remembrance of their great uncle, Yoshikatsu Fukuta.
Hi, we're here for our last raffle. My name is Edie Horner and I'm the CFO for Nichi Bei Foundation.
And I'm Wes Nihei, Membership Coordinator.
So with each of the prizes, we will also include the Japanese American Cultural Guide and the Atomic Bomb Tanka Anthology. So our final two master classes will be given to, or won by, Takahashi Market of San Mateo and Linen West Nihei. We'll have to do another one. Marika Taguma of Union City. Congratulations. We have two Farewell to Manzanar DVDs as prizes. The Tom Kumamaru of San Jose is the winner. And Mark and Alice Taguma of Mountain View are winners. Another book of John Okuda, the life of the Nono Boy author. Norm and Harriet Ishimoto of San Francisco are the winners. I have a book, Nisei Nasir, by the memory of the militant Japanese American journalist Jimmy Umbura. Lily Hirota of San Jose is the winner. Our last prize, The Art of Tofu. Mariella Tsukamoto of Elk Grove, California. Congratulations. And Yuki, come on in.
Thank you again, Edie and Wes, and congratulations to all the winners. Next, we focus on the heart of our operations, the people behind Nichi Bei. Now, these staff members are somebody that I have had the pleasure of getting to know as a board member, and to me, it is the highlight of my time here. These people are incredibly dedicated. They are people that I actually have to encourage them to take vacations because they are just that hardworking. I am really excited for you to meet these people via the video, so please enjoy.
Since mid-March of 2020, our editorial department has primarily worked remotely. While we're no longer all in the same room, we've used different software to access our server and work computers and use messaging software to consistently remain in touch throughout the day. Even the way our reporters cover some stories has changed. Many interviews, events, meetings, and conferences take place remotely or in a hybrid fashion. So we've adapted in our day-to-day work and reporting just as much as the world has throughout the pandemic.
I think one of the most interesting stories that I've worked on this past year or so is the Buchanan Hotel that was proposed to be sold to the city. The pandemic has shut down tourism within the city. In light of the open hotels, the city decided to rent a number of the empty buildings to house homeless people during the pandemic, which was very honorable at first. And I think a lot of people felt happy that people were able to find shelter, and Japantown was no different. The thing about the Buchanan Hotel, however, was that the assumption was that the hotel was going to return to being a tourist hotel after the pandemic is over. The hotel owners had decided they're not going to wait for that and offered to sell the hotel to the city to permanently convert the hotel into sustainable housing for elderly homeless people. Or that's at least what, they were claiming. What ensued was a very tumultuous process where a lot of Japantown locals felt that the loss of the hotel would be a major detriment to the community. And while you also have people who are demanding that homeless people be housed, what ended up happening was that the hotel owners pulled out and the sale fell through. But I think a lot of people got egg on their face throughout this process. It was an exciting story involving hours and hours and hours and hours of testimony, meetings. It was, on one hand, very frustrating, but on the other hand, I think it really speaks to kind of what makes covering this community interesting. Being able to approach stories such as housing for homelessness and being opposed, but having the nuance of history, the displacement of Japanese Americans from the city, and a sense of unfairness in having a thriving community being turned into a tourist community and then having those tourism resources taken away at the whims of others.
One story from this past year that I'm most proud of is the Wat Misaka Jersey ceremony story, which honored the late Wat Misaka from the University of Utah, who led his team to 2 NCAA national championships in basketball in 1944 and 1947. Later, in 1947, Misaka became the first player of color to be selected in the NBA draft when he was picked by the New York Knicks. His son and daughter on the online ceremony said that it was quite an honor for his jersey to be recognized into the Utah Basketball Hall of Fame. One of the quotes from Nancy Umemura, who is Misaka's daughter, said that people recall her father's tenacity on the court. And he played one game where he was very sick, but he didn't stop playing and he kept going and he gave everything to make the team better, is what she said. And if you like that story, you can go to nichibei.org.
Our advertisers and sponsors, they are the huge reason why we can produce our bi-weekly newspaper and also organize our educational events every day. As an advertising manager for the Nichi Bei Foundation, I have a privilege to meet and talk to them. Every time I see them, talk to them, I learn something new. And they're all working hard, but also they're enjoying whatever they are doing. That makes me really want to become more hardworking as an advertising manager, and also as a father, also as a teacher. In the last couple of years, because of their support, we extend our support to our community. Without their support, we couldn't even help ourselves, but now we can support our neighboring community. That's really great for our advertisers and sponsors, whatever they are doing for us. So please support our advertisers and sponsors. They are all hardworking people and they're supporting your community.
Hi. During the pandemic, we started producing online video programs for Nichi Bei, such as Films of Remembrance, Hiroshima Nagasaki bombing, and of course, Nichi Bei Day of Giving. As we started to learn and figure out how to reach an at-home audience, our confidence grew and grew delivering online content. One of my favorite programs that we produce at Nichi Bei is definitely the Hiroshima Nagasaki bombing Day of Remembrance. What turned into just a 75th anniversary of Remembrance in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, it has now turned into an annual remembrance. My favorite segment that I shot and edited was Daisy Okazaki's excerpted reflection of a teenager visiting Hiroshima called "In Hiroshima, Japan, a Teenager Finds an Unexpected Home," which she wrote for Afar. Daisy really connected with the people and discovered who she was in terms of her racial identity. She made such nice sketches from that trip, and to do justice to her artwork, we decided to stylize it a bit, so we took actual photos and, with the magic of AI, converted it to artwork. It is truly a piece that I put my heart and soul into, and proud to add a bit of my fingerprint in helping the remaining hibakusha and their family survivors heal and not be forgotten. I am truly grateful to be a part of that program. So if you like programs like the Hiroshima Nagasaki bombing Day of Remembrance, please go to our YouTube channel, and I urge you to donate or secure a membership to Nichi Bei to help us create more programs like what you're seeing today. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Yuki Nishimura, and I am honored to be Nichi Bei Foundation's newest board member. I was born in Japan and I moved here when I was 5 years old. And the reason why I was really involved in the Japanese American community was really due to my martial art that I do called naginata. That's a Japanese weapon that is very long. It's a pole arm type weapon, has a curved blade at the end. And we practice this at the Northern California region. Now, the reason why I wanted to join the Nichi Bei Foundation really has to go back to 2019 when I was a candidate for the Queen program of the Northern California Cherry Blossom Festival. When we were just candidates in training, I remember then board president Kiyomi Takeda coming over and sharing with us about the Nichi Bei Foundation. Her stories really inspired me, and I remember learning so much about what the foundation does to keep the community informed and connected. And I thought that, wow, someday I want to be like her. I want to be somebody who can also inspire others. When I joined the Nichi Bei Foundation, I think what I've learned was just how much we do for the community. Whether it be through the Nikkei Angel Island pilgrimage, which is upcoming in October, as well as the Soy and Tofu Festival, which happened this summer, and it was just such an incredible time to see the community come back and be very vibrant again. All of that is something that we have been doing on a yearly basis, and we hope that you can support us on this Day of Giving. Thank you so much. Now, it's a little bit odd that I was just on, but I'm back again. Next, we take a look at Nichi Bei Legacies. This will include the introduction of our new Nichi Bei Legacy Society planned giving program and some of our legacy programs. Please take a look.
On Saturday, October 1st, 2022, the Nichi Bei Foundation presents the 5th Nikkei Angel Island pilgrimage to the former Angel Island immigration station, where up to 85,000 persons of Japanese descent entered through from 1910 to 1940. Over the first 4 pilgrimages, more than 1,700 people from across the country and around the world converged upon the historic site. This year, buses will leave from Sacramento and San Jose's Japantown, and attendees can depart from 2 ports. Both bus packages will include Japanese bento lunches plus water, ferry and immigration station museum admission, and the curated program. New this year are the recently opened Angel Island Immigration Museum, the exhibit Taken from Their Families, Japanese American Incarceration on Angel Island During World War II, and the Enemy Alien Files exhibit and panel, including German American and Italian American experiences presented by the National Japanese American Historical Society. There is also a new Lego recreation of the entire immigration station. The program will include storyteller Brenda Wong Aoki and show performer Mark Izu of First Voice, PJ Hirabayashi and the Taiko Peace Ambassadors, Bon Odori dancing to honor our immigrant ancestors, and family history stations by volunteers from the California Genealogical Society. The pilgrimage is presented by the Nichi Bei Foundation in partnership with the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation, Angel Island State Park, California Genealogical Society, and National Japanese American Historical Society. The pilgrimage is sponsored by California Humanities and the Wayne Mayada Educational Fund, as well as funding support from the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation. Space is limited. Reservations are due by September 20th or when 250 spaces are filled. For more information or to purchase bus and ferry packages, please visit nichibei.org/angel-island-pilgrimage.
In the late 1800s, Kyutaro Abiko left his native Niigata, Japan, with little in his pocket but with big dreams for a land far across the Pacific Ocean. Little did he know how he would impact generations to come. He not only established the most influential pre-war Japanese-American newspaper, the Nichi Bei Shimbun, in 1899, but Abiko and his wife Yona would become unparalleled community leaders. Kyutaro Abiko established a labor contracting company that brought workers from Japan, 3 farming colonies in the Central Valley of California, a bank, and community directories that would someday help historians piece together maps of Japantowns long after the neighborhoods were gone. Kyutaro Abiko is known by many as the most influential Japanese immigrant to America. He encouraged Issei pioneers to give up on their sojourner dreams of going back to Japan and instead set roots in the United States, their adopted country. The Nichi Bei newspapers not only kept the rapidly growing and geographically dispersed population connected and informed, but it documented its highs and lows, including the impending World War II wartime exclusion. Yona Abiko, the younger sister of Tsuda College founder Umeko Tsuda, was a pioneer in her own right. Together with her husband, she developed a program to send young Nisei to Japan to learn about their cultural heritage. Yona became publisher of the Nichi Bei Shimbun after the death of her husband in 1936. Yona Abiko also was the chief fundraiser for the San Francisco Japanese YWCA. Decades later, her diary served as key evidence in the legal battle to keep the property in community hands. Today, it is the home of Nihon Machi Little Friends, a multicultural childcare agency. The Abiko family left a strong foundation for future generations, which continued with their son, Yasuo, who helped to restart the Nichi Bei Times after World War II with his wife Lily.
And when we started in 46, they said, "How long do you expect to last?" And we said, "Well, we'll continue as long as there's people want to read the paper."
I see. Was that because there's a integration? Because
well, they said, "How many people are you going to serve?" They say we're getting old and be less help readers, but I guess those you say readers we lost, we've made up with people coming from Japan since then. So I imagine we're going to be here for some time, except all of us are getting old. I don't know how long we're going to hold out.
The Nichi Bei Foundation is the proud beneficiary of this legacy as we continue to keep the Japanese American community connected, informed, and empowered now and for future generations. How can your legacy become a part of ours? To help ensure long-term sustainability of our community-serving institution, we are proud to announce the Nichi Bei Legacy Society. Through a legacy gift to the Nichi Bei Foundation, you can help ensure that succeeding generations of Japanese Americans will remain connected and informed. The Nichi Bei Foundation is one of the oldest legacy organizations in the Japanese American community, yet it is also the youngest nonprofit organization as well. Because we rose from the ashes of the historic Nichi Bei Times in 2009, we missed a lot of support from the Nisei generation. As we strive to preserve our culture and community while documenting our history for future generations, we hope that your legacy will become a part of ours. What is planned giving? What is the Nichi Bei Legacy Society? For a brief explanation, we enlisted the help of Nichi Bei Foundation board member Lori Shigekuni and estate planning attorney Yuka Ohashi Merritt.
Hello, I'm Lori Shigekuni, and I've been a member of the Nichi Bei board for 3.5 years. It's been my privilege to be a part of the board. And I want to tell you that as part of the board, naturally, I like to give to the Nichi Bei Day of Giving. This year, instead of giving to the Day of Giving, I'm going to give a legacy gift. So I have invited my friend Yuka Ohashi Merritt, who's another estate planning lawyer, to come and talk to you and to explain about what a legacy gift is. I think it's a great idea. I have one son. He's Yonsei on one side and Rokusei on the other side. And so he is not that familiar with the Japanese American community now, but I just want to have a way to just pass on to him the stories and the rich legacy that my grandparents and great-grandparents have built up over time. So I think that the Nichi Bei is a really good entry point to be able to connect through culture or through organizations and be able to enter into the Nichi Bei experience. And so I want Yuka to explain a little bit about what's involved with a legacy gift.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction. And my name again is Yuka Ohashi Merritt. I have a practice in San Mateo. I'm an attorney. I specialize in trust and estate. And I do estate planning for my clients as well as probate and then trust administration and estate settlement. So I can talk about various ways of giving to a charitable organization like Nichi Bei Foundation. And then this is legacy gifting that you'd like to talk about. So,
yes.
First thing I can talk about is the use of trust, if you'd like me to.
Oh, yes, thank you. I have a trust.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to explain about that.
Yeah, it's very common for people in California especially to set up a revocable living trust. So if you have one already, then what you could do is to add an amendment to your trust. And typically you want to go back to your attorney who created your trust and ask him or her to do this. And then as an amendment, there are two ways you can do. One is a specific gift or a specific bequest that you can mention a specific amount of cash that you'd like to give to Nichi Bei Foundation and add that to your trust. Or you can add Nichi Bei Foundation as part of your residue, which will be percentages of your distribution. So those are the two ways to add.
I'm planning to do a specific gift for mine. I'm going to do mine myself, but could you explain a little bit about the cost for doing an amendment to your trust?
Okay, so like I said, it's a good idea to go back to your attorney who created this trust for you, and then that could be very simple. If you go to another different attorney, which you can, but that attorney may need to redo the whole trust, which is called restatement rather than amendment. So if you have to go back to your original attorney, that would be probably more cost efficient. And typically attorneys charge hourly rate for doing something like this. And then if it's a simple amendment, then it should not take more than 2 or 3 hours, I would imagine. And so that depends on the attorney's hourly rate, and then you would pay that fee.
Okay, thank you. Could you explain a little bit about a beneficiary designation?
Yeah, so that's another way to give a gift as a legacy gifting. If you have financial accounts, like retirement accounts, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, then one thing you could do is to add Nichi Bei Foundation as a beneficiary. And then so as a beneficiary, when you pass away, then the Nichi Bei Foundation would receive the balance in that account. So that's one simple way to do this, legacy gifting. And what I've heard from my tax accountant people is that if the charity is a beneficiary of your retirement account, then the charity, upon receipt of your retirement account balance, the charity would not be paying tax on it. Whereas if the beneficiary is an individual, then the retirement account would be subject to tax as the beneficiary takes money out from the retirement account. So that would be a difference, and that could be very beneficial way of, on an tax-efficient way of giving.
Okay, and what about a will? Could you explain a little bit about gifts through a will?
Okay, sure. So that's the third way, and using a will, it's definitely possible, but I tend to avoid using a will because it could be subject to probate, and then some people have this misunderstanding that if you have a will, then your assets would not go through probate, but that's not true. Even if you have a will, your assets could be subject to probate depending on the amount and then how the assets are structured. So you could certainly add Nichi Bei Foundation as part of your beneficiary under your will, but I would tend to go with the first two options.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you so much for your time today, Yuka.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate you helping the listeners at the Nichi Bei understand about legacy gifting.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Nice to be here talking to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We are honored that the grandchildren of Nichi Bei Shimbun publishers Kyutaro and Yona Abiko who are also the daughters of Nichi Bei Times pioneers Yasuo and Lily Abiko, are joining the Nichi Bei Legacy Society as charter members. Joan Ishihara, Grace Abiko, and Beth Abiko Gibson explain why they think it's important to make a legacy gift to strengthen and maintain an institution deeply rooted in their family's tradition of service.
I think the Legacy Society is important so the Nichi Bei Foundation can continue to publish the Nichi Bei Weekly for generations to come. I'd like to support the Legacy Society because where else in one publication can we get such a comprehensive source of news, articles, and columns about events, Japanese culture, and history that impact the lives of Japanese Americans? There's a long history in our family with the Nichi Bei beginning in 1899 when our grandfather Kyotaro Abiko first published the Nichi Bei Shimbun to help the Issei immigrants with important information as they settled in America. When Kyotaro Abiko passed away in 1936, our grandmother Yona Abiko ran the newspaper until her health declined in 1941. At that time, our father Yasuo Abiko, who was the English editor, took over running the Nichi Bei. Following the Executive Order 9066, and then with the forced evacuation approaching in 1942, the Nichi Bei Shimbun disseminated necessary information to the Japanese community during that time of uncertainty. The newspaper was published right up until our father and mother were sent to Tanfran Assembly Center. In order for them to keep publishing, they were the last group of evacuees to leave San Francisco. At the end of the war, a few months after returning to San Francisco, our father and a few others restarted the Nichi Bei Times in Japantown on Sutter Street near Laguna. The newspaper provided sources of information and news to the Issei and Nisei as they returned to their hometowns or resettled in other parts of the country. Today, the Nichi Bei Weekly continues to inform, educate, and entertain us as it piques our interest to learn more about ourselves and our culture. I think our Abiko grandparents and parents would be proud to see how far their efforts have evolved and expanded due to the diligence of Kenji Taguma, the Nichi Bei Foundation staff and board. For these reasons, I support the Nichi Bei Foundation Legacy Society for the benefit of all of our children and grandchildren.
Continuing the legacy of my parents and grandparents to facilitate communication in the Japanese community, Japanese American community. So it's very worthwhile to participate in the legacy gift.
Yeah, I really think that one word that comes to mind as far as the legacy project and today is connection. That it has helped many generations of people to connect with all the resources out there. That's what Kyotaro wanted to do, is help the other Issei connect with the world out there beyond Japantown, and similarly, our dad continued his legacy. Kyotaro found it. So it's just so important that we all connect
The Japanese American community is evolving, and the Nichi Bei Foundation is needed to help preserve and pass on Japanese American culture, history, and community values to future generations. We hope you will consider making your legacy a part of ours by joining the Nichi Bei Legacy Society. For more information, please visit www.nichibei.org/legacy society. Thank you.
And finally, we take this opportunity to announce a major milestone in our organization's history, the rebranding of our publication. We're excited to announce to you this new direction. Please take a look.
In order to address branding issues at a pivotal crossroads for the 13-year-old nonprofit organization, the Nichi Bei Foundation engaged Osaki Creative Group, a design and marketing firm based in Honolulu, Hawaii, and Berkeley, California, to conduct a brand audit over the past year. Osaki Creative Group has helped to redesign brand identity for many professional sports teams, universities, and community-based nonprofit organizations alike. The process, which engaged board members, staff, and other members of the Nichi Bei community, sought out to examine and resolve the following branding issues. Create a new name for a community news publication that better suits the brand. Create brand consistency throughout the foundation. define the core brand identity and how it is portrayed through the foundation's various programs, event and foundation programs awareness, differentiating the current brand from past brands, trademarking the brand and publication. Based on the analysis of an internal brand survey and a look at the Nichi Bei's competitors, Osaki Creative Group recommended a strategy that included the following: clarify brand hierarchy, modernized logo and brand assets. To that end, we created an organizational chart that helps to clarify the many entities under the Nichi Bei Foundation umbrella. The culmination of this year-long process is the following. First, we would like to introduce a major announcement in this third incarnation of the storied Nichi Bei legacy of community leadership through media, which started with the Nichi Bei Shimbun from 1899 to 1942, continued with the Nichi Bei Times from 1946 to 2009, and now the Nichi Bei Weekly from 2009 to today. From January 2023, the Nichi Bei Weekly will change to the Nichi Bei News to better reflect the publication's bi-weekly nature since 2012. This is a change that is a decade in the making, a change long overdue. We are proud to unveil the following new logos developed in collaboration with the Osaki Creative Group. Moreover, we would like to introduce the following new masthead with a new tagline, changing the longer tagline that essentially spells out our mission statement to a more simpler, cleaner, connect, inform, empower. We feel that these three words are simple, yet profoundly identify the impact we try to achieve through our groundbreaking community news publication. The brand audit process also led to a new logo for the Nichi Bei Foundation, making it more consistent. The following is a new logo type of the Nichi Bei Foundation logo. Also, this process clearly organized the vast array of programmatic and publication projects of the Nichi Bei Foundation, which led to a key recommendation to create two separate websites for the Nichi Bei News and the Nichi Bei Foundation, with one focusing more on the news entities and the other to be focused on the foundation entities tied to events and fundraising. They will be naturally tied together and cross-promote each other. We thank the Osaki Creative Group for working collaboratively on this process and look forward to furthering our mission of keeping the Japanese American community connected, informed, and empowered.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining our 6th annual Nichi Bei Day of Giving. We're coming to the end of the program today. Thank you for all of those who have tuned in since 3 o'clock, and big thank you to Yuki Nishimura, our hostess with the mostest. Thank you for being our MC throughout the day. We've had a great crew in and around the office working behind the scenes. So thank you to Wes Nihei, Lynn Nihei, Edie Horner, Julian Ho, our intern, Ryan Yamamoto, our office manager, and Kelly Yokoi, our marketing coordinator, and especially the person who's really behind the scenes putting this together, Greg Valoria, our producer. Yay, Greg! For putting together this show and especially our Nichi Bei Cafe. And I just wanted to introduce Ryan and Kelly again. You've seen them in a lot of videos today, but we want to give them props because they are our future. They are our co-hosts of the Nichi Bei Cafe. So you see a lot of them. And this is their actual height.
Oh, yes. This is our actual height difference. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone who has donated so far. We hope you've been enjoying the programming, and be sure to hit that like button and smash that subscribe button.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for tuning in to Day of Giving, and to Nichi Bei Cafe for checking us out on there and seeing what we have to offer, seeing what Nichi Bei has to offer. Yeah, so a huge thanks to all of our donors for pitching in to our general page, the Wayne Mayada page, the internship page, and so on. So yeah, thank you guys so much. It's been an honor to see all of the donations roll in, and we're super, super thankful.
And according to my records, we're $1,290 away from reaching our matching grant total, our matching donation total of $60,000 from the Craig Foundation. And we really thank Craig Harmer and the Craig Foundation for the past several years putting together such an amazing amount of support behind our Day of Giving. It really makes this event go, and we can't thank you enough because it gives us a certain goal. So that 1,290, I pledge personally to donate that to make the goal of 60,000, and because half of my staff are former interns from 15 years ago, 16 years ago, and then Ryan and Kelly, and I really believe that we need to invest in our young people in our future. So I'm going to donate to our internship fund so that we can continue to have and host interns throughout the years to come. Ryan and Kelly are really have been the backbone of a lot of our operations over the last couple years. So we wouldn't be here without them. And Kelly has so many roles with the cafe in terms of editing videos, as well as hosting the show as well. So anyways, thank you, and thank you for believing in what we do here, and thank you for tuning in today. And you can still contribute. We know that there are people sending in checks, so we are going to keep the pages open until the end of September because we customarily get leftover checks, but please feel free to contribute. We have reached our matching goal total of 60,000, so we have raised 120,000 by now. We do have a larger goal of 150,000, so we're a little bit short of that, but maybe we'll reach that in a few days. But anyways, thanks again for joining us, and any last words?
Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you again for all the donations. We really appreciate it, especially those to the internship fund to keep Nichi Bei thriving for many years to come. We definitely want to invest in the youth, and Ryan and I definitely benefited from the internship fund as well. So please donate, and donate to the Soy and Tofu Festival Fund too, to have an amazing Soy and Tofu Festival next year, and all the other funds we could really appreciate and use all of the help that you could give.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, as Kenji said, we're going to leave the donation page open until the end of September. So yeah, if you didn't get a chance to donate today, please feel free. And yeah, we'd really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
And thank you again to the Craig Foundation, Craig Harmer, and also the Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund, which donated $15,000 today. Thanks again.
Okay.
Okay. I need to turn the mic on. Are our mics off? Are our mics off? Okay.
This is my 45th year as a musician, composer, and my first concert in a very long time.
All right.
As I emerge out of the chrysalis of COVID, I muse on what the world has become. Where is my place in it? What do I have to contribute? My musings always take me back to J-Town, the first Japanese settlement in America, placed 3 times. The anti-Japanese laws during the Victorian era, the incarceration and redevelopment. My father fought in Europe with the 442nd. My mother was imprisoned in Poston. Still, our brave little community stands. Warm memories of people, places come and gone. Issei grandmas in kimono riding muni. Nisei aunties cooking community feasts. Sansei fighting for redress. As I compose this music, the spirit of my sensei, Togi Suonobu, whispers in my ear. Our journey continues.
and look to the sky, and I walk along so the tears won't fall, remembering those happy days of spring. But tonight I'm all alone.
Hello everyone, こんにちは。
皆さんのことアメリカからお祈りしています。
私たちの心は皆さんと共にあります。
皆さんが元気でありますように。
また会いたいです。
頑張ろう。皆さんお元気で。
素敵な笑顔をありがとう。
またお会いできることを望んでいます。
Love from America. Happiness lies above the clouds. Happiness lies above the sky.
"皆さんのことを思っています。
また会いましょう。
必ずまたお会いしましょう。約束ですよ。
東北の復興と発展を応援しています。
笑顔、スマイル。
皆さんのことを絶対忘れません。
応援しています。ファイトオー！